Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Bet Around, coming to you live from our Towson studios on a beautiful and warm Saturday morning here on November the 12th, 2022. I'm your host, the reigning, defending, undisputed take-to-rake champion of the world, 3 times defending Paul Valley. He is our 3-time reigning, defending, take-to-rake loser of the world, Zach Goodman.
You're right.
Good morning, Zach. How are you?
Good morning. Still sick, unfortunate.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not enjoying it.
I'd be feeling sick, too, if I lost Take to Rake 3 years running.
That's funny. That's a good one. That's a great one.
Pretty sick myself. Phillies fans are feeling sick right now as the Astros closed out the World Series in 6 games last Saturday. Just a mere hours after our show went off the air. There's a lot of vibration going on, like a lot of...
Yeah, so they have a gaming laptop here. That's how they run the streams. And underneath it is a cooling system, like a bunch of fans that are actually running underneath that, and that's what it is.
Gotcha.
So I have no idea how to turn that off, and I don't know why it's there.
You probably shouldn't turn it off.
Probably not.
We'll let it go, and we'll soldier on. So as I said, Astros close out the World Series, winning their 2nd World Series in 6 years. Dusty Baker, his 1st World Series, solidifying his... He was already a Hall of Famer, right? He was going to be a Hall of Famer because he has over 2,000 wins, 9th most in history, most amongst active managers.
Yeah.
But it's cemented. His legacy is cemented for all of eternity now. He will be in the Hall of Fame, having won his 1st World Series championship at the ripe old age of 73. Jeremy Pena makes the world forget about Carlos Correa. He was the ALCS and the World Series MVP back-to-back. Oh, there go the fans.
No, they're still there. You just can't hear them when my mic's off because I muted myself for a second. But they're running pretty high.
Where do we rank this Astros team amongst some of the greatest dynasties in the history of the sport? I mean, 6 straight ALCSs, that's never been done. 4 World Series in 6 years, 2 championships. We got to put them up there, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, they're in it almost every year. And it's something where... You talked about it on the show a few weeks ago that they're one of those teams that almost just seems to just show up and get their work done at this point. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of question about whether the Astros are going to be good every year. They run a pretty tight ship there. They're run like the Ravens, really, if you want to make a football analogy to it, because they're always good. And you know the management's going to put together a good team, a good front office, and we'll talk about that a little later. But the team is always competitive, and they always put the pieces in place they need to be in a really good spot. And they're one of those teams that, again, you don't have to think about that much. They show up yearly. They get their work done. Relatively, I didn't hear a lot about them this year. They kind of stay out of the news a little bit, except for, the 2017 cheating scandal, of course. But they're really solid and competitive every year, year in, year out.
Well, if you want to be really solid and competitive, make sure you come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook and Live Casino and Hotel. The ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the FanDuel Sportsbook and Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland, and get competitive in your sports betting, especially since it's going to be coming to mobile devices in a mere weeks. So, if you were a betting man, you bet on the Astros, like what's his name, Mattress Mac did.
Oh yeah,
where he made 10 $1 million bets on at plus 750 odds for the Astros to win the World Series. He won $75 million.
He did.
Now, Mattress Mac is a guy who has made headlines over the years for just the insane bets that he's put out there. When I used to do Glenn's show and we did our what was it? Simply the Bets.
Yeah.
On Tuesdays, I had a segment where I had to come up with just a crazy bet. And a lot of times, it was Mattress Mac who was just betting and winning and losing millions. One time, he bet that it was something like, he said, if I don't win this, I will give off my entire inventory for free. And he ended up not winning the bet, so he had to give out his entire inventory for free. Now, he's a furniture salesman.
Okay, I figured with the mattress name, but I just want to make sure.
He's a furniture salesman,
okay.
But I think it was one of these things where he had to get rid of the inventory anyway because he had all this new stuff coming in. So it was either I could sell it at a dropped rate or I could just give it away. And he's got so much freaking money.
Well, I saw the video of him packing the money into a private plane.
Oh,
Did you see that? Yeah.
I did not. I saw the video when Bregman hit that double to break open the game in like game 4 or game 5 or whatever, and he's going, woo! Woo!
I would be...
What a player! Woo!
I would be doing a little more than that if I was about to win $75 million.
I didn't realize. See, I never knew what Mattress Mac looked like. So I always just envisioned this guy in his 40s or 50s just wearing like diamond-encrusted loafers. And
you're thinking of like a mafia furniture salesman.
Yeah, and like I just imagine this kind of slimy-looking guy.
Mm-hmm.
This guy looks like he's like 84 years old.
Oh, yeah.
And he celebrates a woo!
Yeah.
Literally no louder, woo! Anyway. So the Astros win the World Series. Mattress Mac wins a crap ton of money for them winning the World Series. They bring back Dusty Baker on a 1-year deal. I was a little surprised it wasn't more. I guess because he's 73 years old.
Yeah.
But I was a little surprised. It doesn't seem like a large vote of confidence, but maybe it was something they both agreed on because he was like, look, I'm not getting any younger, and, let's just do this year by year.
I mean, I kind of had the assumption he'd just go out on top, right? Like, you win a World Series and you've waited long enough. You have over 2,000 wins. You're a guy who's, again, cemented in the Hall of Fame at this point. I kind of figured he'd just say, that's it, and not make another return to the Astros. Because, say they win 87 games next year and don't go that far, and they're good, but they're not great. Then he's going to want another year.
But maybe that's why they did the 1-year deal, because
it's possible.
There's a good chance that ownership said to him, hey, look, we're offering our GM, James Click, this deal, but it's 1 year, $1 million. He's not going to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
We really don't want to lose our manager and our GM in the offseason after we win the World Series. Why don't you come back for another year? We'll try to get some stability in the front office, and then we'll play it. We'll play it by ear after that. And he was probably like, okay, that makes sense to me. They probably had a conversation, like a gentleman's agreement, like, look,
sure,
we kind of need you just for stability here. Because even though they're the defending World Series champions and the players ultimately are the ones that win the games, it's not a good look to win the World Series and then immediately get rid of your GM and your manager. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
It's not a good look.
It's like when the Orioles after the '97 season, when they went wire to wire and were the best team in baseball all year, and then they get rid of Davey Johnson. Mm-hmm. It was a bad look then, and they didn't win for 14 years after that. And it would be a bad look for the Astros too, in my opinion. Now the Phillies, on the other hand, they went up 2-1 in the series, and the bats went completely quiet after Game 3. $240 million payroll last season, which was the 4th highest in baseball. I didn't realize that until I saw this the other night. Castellanos' struggles were well documented. Schwarber led the NL in home runs. He was second in Major League Baseball with 46. But between he and Rhys Hoskins, you really have two guys in your lineup that don't hit for high average. They strike out a ton. They're really all or nothing bats, right? And so you look at the team. They declined the option on Segura. The bullpen's been iffy. The rotation's good, but Syndergaard and Eflin are free agents. They pick up the option on Nola. They still have Wheeler. What does this team need to do to get back to the World Series? Because that offense, for as much as it carried the team in the postseason, when it went quiet quick.
Well, frankly, I think they have a lot of work to do. They have a lot to replace. By the way, I was watching the World Series, and all the games, I was thinking the same thing over and over. What does Rhys Hoskins do? Like, why is Rhys Hoskins there? I've never understood it. I don't think Rhys Hoskins is a very good baseball player.
He hits 30 home runs.
He does, but Renato Nunez did that too.
Yeah, I mean, he's it's going to sound awful. He's essentially Anthony Santander.
I think Santander is a better player.
Considerably. I think Anthony Santander is a better player too, but Rhys Hoskins gets on base more.
That's true.
Rhys Hoskins had a higher batting average. They had comparable home runs. Hoskins had 30. Santander had, 32, 33? Right? I think they both drove in right around the same amount of runs. And Hoskins is a fairly good defensive first baseman, right?
Yeah, he's okay. Right. Sure.
So until Anthony Santander starts hitting 260, 270, I mean, Santander has the look and the feel of a better athlete. He's a bit younger, but they're on the same plane, which is why, and we're going to talk about this later too, which is why I don't want a guy like Jock Peterson signing with the Orioles.
No, because
I feel like you're getting more of the same player, and that's what the Phillies have. They have Schwarber hits an exorbitant amount of home runs.
Yeah.
With he hit like 207 this year, right? With the low batting average and the high strikeout rate, you have multiple guys on your team that do that. And I don't want the Orioles to have multiple guys on their team that do that. I want them to have better players than that, and that's a problem that the Phillies have. Which is, I also find it interesting the Phillies have been linked to Trey Turner. Trey Turner wants to come back east.
Could see it.
And the Phillies need a shortstop, and they need somebody that, because you're not going to. I mean, and maybe you could play. They declined the option on Segura, so maybe you have Trey Turner. You keep Stott at shortstop, and you have Trey Turner playing second base. But that gives their lineup length, because now you have Schwarber and Hoskins, but you also have Trey Turner and Bryce Harper and Nick Castellanos, who we both agree is going to come back and have a far better year next year.
That's good points. You definitely have to have some diversity in your lineup as far as profiles go and what guys are doing and why they're doing it. I don't. Rhys Hoskins is not one of the worst baseball players in that team. I just think there's room to upgrade, and I think there's room to upgrade in a lot in that lineup. I think there's a lot of positions they could use to improve, and they've got a lot of work to do. They've got a lot of guys they probably should sign. They've got a lot of holes in the roster at the moment. Yeah, they were a World Series team, but you can't forget that they were not one of the best teams in the league in the regular season. They had a really great postseason run. They even almost faltered at the end of the year and missed the playoffs completely. So this is a team that definitely has holes to fill. They got to get better across the board.
Yeah, I think that they do as well, and you also have to worry about that World Series hangover. And I know that usually happens for the world champions, but it can happen for your runner-up as well. And you don't want them to. The Phillies certainly can't rest on their laurels. They've got to get better. And if they were willing to spend $240 million last year, there's no reason they shouldn't be spending that this year.
Yeah. My point's not that they got lucky. That's not what I'm trying to say.
I know that.
Yeah,
I know that, and I think the people listening know that, but. They got hot at the right time.
Right. Exactly. Precisely.
They got just like the Royals in 2014. The Royals were under 500 at like the 105 game mark in 2014, and they made a run and they got to the World Series. Yeah. What do you do to avoid a collapse? To be the 2015 Royals rather than, I don't know, what's a team that got to the World Series one year? Like rather than be like the Rockies in 2007.
Okay.
Right.
Fair.
What do you do to avoid being that team?
I mean, you got to add more, right?
Yeah, the bullpen's got to get better.
It's got to get better, and you've seen teams like the Nationals in 2019 get by with a really bad bullpen, but that's also because they had some of the best hitters of a generation. I mean, that team was and pitching too.
Not just that, but they had three. Exactly, they had three really great starting pitchers, and in a 7-game series, you don't really need 3 great starting pitchers.
No, I mean you don't, but they were unbelievably stacked at every position besides the bullpen, and you can get away with that, but I don't think the Phillies are that, and I don't really think they're close to that. They do have guys like Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber that are really good impact players, and of course the Aaron Nolas of the world, but you have a lot of holes to fill outside of that.
That's the other thing, is that you have to look at Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler struggled in the postseason. They started good, but they ended the postseason struggling. How do you ensure that you don't have those struggles once you get to the postseason? Because these are guys who they're regular season hosses, right?
Yeah.
But then they get to the postseason, they struggle. Nola has a history of underperforming in September.
Well, maybe you go get, I hate to say this because his postseason history, especially in the World Series, has been pretty shaky, but maybe you get a guy like Justin Verlander. Maybe you get a guy who's been around for a while, and he just won his first World Series game. I know he's pitched in, I believe, 7.
No, 9.
And he just won his first one. So that's not, my point is more that you're getting that veteran experience, a guy who's been there so many times, and maybe he takes your team to the next level. Or maybe you go and you get another bat that has a lot of experience. Maybe someone like Michael Brantley that you can fill a spot with. I think they need a little bit more experience because you have the inexperienced guys like Alec Boehm and Bryson Stott, the guys that are making up still a core part of your lineup. If you add some experience, some guys that have been there before, Brandon Marsh, of course, some guys that have been there before might take you over the top next time.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are pitchers out there. Now, you're not going to get a Sandy Alcantara from the Marlins because you're in their division, but there are guys out there that you could trade for or that you could sign.
I'm sure.
You could sign Jacob deGrom, who, when he's on the mound, he's the best player on the field.
Sure.
There are guys that you can go get. It's just a matter of, are you going to go get them? And look, they're not losing a ton of guys off their roster from last year, so that payroll is still going to be really high this year. I mean, Castellanos and Schwarber each signed 5-year deals last offseason.
Right.
Rhys Hoskins, you might be able to do something with. Bryce Harper is headed into year 5 of a 13-year deal.
Yeah.
You have a lot of guys who are big payroll guys who are under contract, plus some guys that are going to be entering arbitration in the next year or two that's going to make your payroll go up. So it's going to be an interesting scenario for the Phillies to see what they can do moving forward to try and stay in a very competitive NL East, because also remember that the Marlins are going to try and get better. The Braves are still really good, and they're going to get better. And the Mets are going to get better. I mean, they just signed Edwin Diaz for 5 years, $105 million.
Yeah, I mean, that division is going to be every bit as good as any other division in the baseball, because it has really 5 teams that have the ability to make the playoffs. And I think the Marlins are going to take another step forward. If they trade some of that pitching and they get some bats, the Marlins could be a really dangerous team. Yeah. I mean, people forget they made the playoffs in 2020. They, of course, a 60-game season, but they played pretty well. I mean, they won like 31 games, I believe, that year. So they were better than a lot of teams in the NL, and that I could see that happening again. The Marlins, if they just round out the team a little bit better and diversify some of that talent to other positions, they could be really dangerous.
They absolutely could. And you think about the fact that the Braves and the Mets each won 101 games this past season, and yet the 87-win Phillies are the team that comes out of the NL East and makes it to the World Series. So it's going to be a competitive division. Phillies got some work to do to try and stay in it, but hats off to them for a really good and successful 2022, especially firing your manager 100 games, not even 100 games into the season. 50. It was like 54 games into the season.
And then they just played well after that, and they turned it around.
Took off, absolutely. Orioles news, Jordan Lyles had his $11 million option decline. The Orioles bought him out for the $1 million. Zach, you were not a fan of this.
No.
You look at it from a value standpoint, he's a one-win pitcher, and you can probably get that kind of production from somebody for less than $11 million. Now, you can look at it as half glass full or half glass empty. The half glass full people would say, well, the Orioles, Michael Elias says lift off from here. The Orioles are going to go out and they're going to sign a starting pitcher. They're going to spend more money on a starting pitcher that's better than Jordan Lyles to pair him with guys like Grayson Rodriguez and D.L. Hall and Tyler Wells and Dean Kramer and John Means. Or you can look at it glass half empty. There go the Orioles being cheap again. They don't want to pay $11 million for a guy who had 180 innings pitched 2 years in a row. I don't think that's it either.
No.
But there's going to be those people out there that think that.
Well, sure.
Right?
So my initial reaction here wasn't that. It wasn't ever, this is just another example of the Orioles not willing to spend money. That was never it. My reaction here is, can you get a better pitcher for $11 million than Jordan Lyles? And I'm not sure the WAR accurately represents what he was this year. I think he was a lot better than that. I think he gave them a lot of quality starts that, frankly, I'm not sure, another pitcher at that price point may be able to do as consistently. Yeah. So I think this argument for me, and the fact that I'm not happy with it, is going to be more... it's one of those things it remains to be seen, right? Like, it remains to be seen if the Orioles can get a guy at $11 million that's a better pitcher, or in the price range of $11 million, that's a better pitcher considerably than Jordan Lyles. I'm not sure that's the case, but maybe they think they can, and that's probably why they declined this option.
Yeah, and yes, he made what, 32 starts, something like that.
Sounds about right. He almost led the league.
Yeah. He missed a start because he was sick, and then he came out and got and started a game, and back-to-back games in September where they needed him to be that guy. Yeah. And he gave up. He put out a dud in those games, and they didn't win those games when they needed, and that could be the difference. You know what I mean? That could be the difference in making a postseason run and not getting there. But he did have 13 quality starts, but then you look at it, he only had 13 quality starts. The Orioles leader last year was John Means. I believe he had 16, and Lyles had 17 for the Rangers last year. So even though the numbers, the ERA and the wins were better than Texas, the quality starts were down for Jordan Lyles. Even still, he was nearly a run. He was nearly 2/3 of a run better, or 3/4 of a run better this year than last year. He did what you wanted him to do. I thought they'd pick up the option on him. They didn't. Now, there's a chance that he could be brought back at a lower number. I doubt it. I don't think you're paying a guy $1 million just to pay him again. But we'll see. The Orioles are going to, from what Mike Elias said towards the end of the year, and then what he said again at the winter meetings this week, and I have some quotes here from the winter meetings that he said.
Or the GM meetings, correct?
Not the winter meetings. I'm sorry, the general manager meetings. He said, we're going to get started with addressing our major league needs ASAP. I expect a very active offseason for us. It's going to be different than the rebuilding kind of offseason that I've had since I've been here. Mm-hmm. To me, that's something to get excited about.
Oh yeah.
And to me, that says we're going to go out, we're going to wheel and deal, and we're going to make some moves, and we're going to add to this roster. And we're going to supplement with the young talent we have with the guys who can help put us over the top. Is that how you take it, or do you think that it's maybe a bunch of lesser signings?
Well, I think it's all going to depend on what the market looks like. You see a guy this morning, Rafael Montero, get $35 million over 3 years with the Astros, and I start to think, man, maybe this market could be a little more expensive than we think it is. We saw Edwin Diaz get, and that's just a re-signing, of course, but we see him get $105 from the Mets over 5 years. This market could be expensive, so I think that's going to really define a lot of what the Orioles do. If guys are right player, right price, then I'm sure they're going to make the move for it. But there could be a lot of lesser signings, especially early on. You could see them make some minor league deals, or you could see them make some, $5 million deals over a year, something pretty cheap, something pretty respectable. But the bigger guys, maybe they make one or two big signings, maybe a trade here and there. I think that's going to come later in the offseason. It's really going to be defined by how the market, plays out, especially in the GM meetings right now, of course, and then the winter meetings in December. And I think after that, they'll start to look at, down the road of what moves they can make, right player, right price. So I don't necessarily think they've really decided yet whether they want to make a big move or a small move, but they're really waiting.
I think they've decided.
You think? Well, I think they're waiting for the market to show itself on what it is.
Yeah, and I saw something somewhere, I think it was on ESPN, that the big domino is Aaron Judge. But Aaron Judge, to me, is not a free agent that signs quickly.
No, he's probably a February guy.
To me, like sometimes, unless the Yankees come out, and I don't know that it's going to take till February, but I don't know that it's done before January, before the holiday season, where you have a 2-week dead period for the holidays. I don't. So to me, Aaron Judge being the domino makes sense, except I think it's going to take longer than that. Okay. I don't think that you're going to hit the winter meetings and necessarily get a deal for Aaron Judge, because I think the Yankees really want him back, but I think they really want him back at their price. Their payroll is so high. They have other guys coming up, and the other guys that they're currently paying. Are you really going to give Judge $40 million a year for 7 to 9 years?
Tough sell.
The Giants could be in on that, but I think that there's going to be a bidding war for Aaron Judge between a handful of teams, and it's just no clear cut. Hey, this is going to happen at this time. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. I also don't think that Mike Elias operates in the sense of doing things based off what another team does. I think that Mike Elias has a good finger on the pulse of the market, and he knows what price should be able to get things done. If that person isn't willing to play for that price, then he's going to move on. Yeah,
my point is more if the market shows itself to be more expensive than he originally thinks. Like where he is right now is, he has certain numbers on certain players that he thinks they might be worth. But come January, those numbers might have, severely increased. Maybe they've decreased, and the market could really change from where he thinks it is now. So that's my point. I think they might wait to make those bigger signings till down the road, when the market really decides to show itself and what it really is.
Yeah. And the other thing is, you have a lot of people around the industry, a lot of pundits, a lot of analysts around the industry, and then a lot of fans also saying that they don't expect the Orioles to be in on the big names. Mm-hmm. And that's simply because of the fact that they haven't been in the past.
Correct.
And really the last big free agent signing that wasn't Chris Davis. You know what? I'm not going to say anything because that's going to give away my trivia question. Okay. So they aren't really known to go after these big free agents, but that was old front office, old ownership. It's the same ownership family, but it's different ownership. We have no idea what liftoff looks like to Mike Elias. We have no idea. Like, I can sit here and say, the Orioles aren't going to pay $30 million a year for Trey Turner. I don't know that. Why aren't they going to pay $30 million for Trey Turner? If any team can pay $30 million a year for Trey Turner, it is the Baltimore Orioles, because they're only going to have like a $40 million payroll as things currently stand. So why can't you be the team that pays Trey Turner? You should be more likely than every other team if it is indeed liftoff from here. So the Orioles aren't going to spend that. You don't know that. Nobody knows that. I'm not saying you. I'm using you as a generalization, not Zach Goodman.
Yeah, I think that nobody knows what they're going to do. That's absolutely correct. There are free agents that you can say are a lot less likely. Like, we look at Aaron Judge and we say, that's probably not going to happen. Like, there's a good 95% chance that's not happening.
Not to mention, it might not be the smartest thing for this franchise.
You look at Jacob deGrom, I don't think that one's happening.
Right.
There's a lot of, even Trey Turner, Carlos Correa, they're doubtful. But there are a lot of guys.
Why? I get it with deGrom and with Judge. Why are Trey Turner and Carlos Correa doubtful?
I think the Orioles are going to be a team that is going to offer a lot of money. I agree with that. But I do think there is a certain chance they get outbid, number one. They can always get outbid by teams like the Yankees, like the Dodgers, that are just willing to give out more in the long run. Mm-hmm. And number two, I think Trey Turner may not want to come to Baltimore. That's just one. He's a right-handed hitter, a guy who I'm not sure his power plays that well in Camden Yards with the way the new dimensions are.
Look, we saw him. He knows he's playing for a contract.
Yeah.
This past year. So we saw him get a little homer happy and change the launch angle, and he struggled at different points. But at the end of the year, he still hit 300.
He did.
He scored 100 runs. He drove in 100 runs. He hit 28 home runs, had a bunch of stolen bases. I don't think that the wall scares a player like Trey Turner.
Maybe not.
Because maybe he looks at the wall and he says, that's just more room for me to run.
And the Orioles could absolutely be in the running for him. I'm not saying they won't be, because, again, we don't know. We have no definitive idea of what the Orioles will be in on, because we're not in that front office and we don't see it. However, I think there are more likely options and there are less likely options, and Aaron Judge is one of the less likely ones.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You look at a guy like Chris Bassett and you go, okay, that could be a really good fit, and they could be willing to dish out a really high amount of money for a guy like that, a really consistent and stable starter who's been, for the most part of his career, outside of maybe 1 or 2 years, has been really, really good and consistent. So, again, the Orioles will spend money. It's just really going to come down to who.
I'm so interested to see what's going to happen. And look, we get super excited, right? The World Series is over. 5 days from now, the offseason really begins, and the Orioles can get after it. I'm sure Mike Elias had a lot of preliminary conversations at the GM meetings.
Oh, sure.
This past week. There's not a doubt in my mind that he maybe talked to every team, right?
Sure.
I don't expect this regime to wait. Like Dan Duquette, to his credit, he had to wait because he wasn't sure what kind of money ownership was going to let him spend.
Sure.
I don't think that this regime does that. I think that Mike Elias has full autonomy over this team. Of course, he has to go to ownership and be like, hey, can I spend this? But I think that he pretty much knows what he's allowed to spend. And I think that we're not going to be waiting until February or March for a signing. But you're not getting a signing this weekend. Like that,
right.
Like it's going to take some time, and maybe the winter meetings is where it really ramps up. That's usually where it ramps up.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a little surprising that we haven't seen more movement, I think, since Thursday. But it's only been basically 3 days.
Right. I'm not surprised. I mean, I don't really think a lot generally happens that early. And if you look at even the biggest teams, the Yankees and the Dodgers and all those teams, they've generally waited a lot longer. And you see a guy like Montero sign, to me, that's kind of an outlier. It doesn't happen that often.
Well, and the guys who are signing have re-signed with their own teams.
Right. Correct.
Diaz re-signed with the Mets. Yeah. Montero re-signed with the Astros. Now, Nick Anderson was a free agent out there. He was a quality reliever.
True.
He signed with – who did he sign with?
Was it the Padres?
I think he signed with the Padres.
Yeah.
Or was it the Braves?
Could have been. Actually, it was the Braves.
It was the Braves.
It was the Braves.
Yeah. Right. He was a guy who pitched for the Rays. He's been hurt the last couple of seasons. That was a guy that Ryan Blake and I talked about, and we would have liked to have seen sign in Baltimore, but he signed with the Braves. So, aside from that, a lot of these guys are just re-signing with their teams. I think once you have qualifying offers accepted or rejected on Tuesday at 4 at 4 o'clock, you'll see more movement on the free agent. It feels like it's been 5 days that they've been in free agency, but it hasn't even been 48 hours.
And I know we're going to talk about the QOs, but you already know some of those guys are immediately going to reject their QO.
There's a bunch of guys.
A lot of them.
But then there's some guys. I think there's really one guy who might accept it. I think that's Jock Peterson. I think he's the one guy who might accept it.
I could see that.
But anyway, we got to get Stay on the Fan online. I want to remind you, online sports betting will be starting in Maryland in the next few weeks, and PressBox is your source for the best offers and sign-up incentives. Guys, we have an incredible sign-up incentive for you here at PressBox. Starting now, you can get $300. That's $300 in registration credit plus other incentives by going to PressBoxOnline.com/offers. All you have to do, you go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers now, and you immediately get your $300 Go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers now to get your $300 in pre-registration bonus credits. That's all you have to do. Go there, sign up, and that's, again, at PressBoxOnline.com/offers. We are giving you $300 in pre-registration credit. Just an incredible offer. Go now, PressBoxOnline.com/offers. Joining us on the show now for his weekly segment, it's Stan the Fan. Charles. Stan, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, guys. How you doing, Paul?
We're doing well. Astros, they go and win the World Series in 6 games. Jeremy Pena, kind of making people forget about Carlos Correa, World Series MVP right after winning the NLCS MVP. He's a Gold Glove winner. He had 20 homers as a rookie. Big kid. I didn't realize how big he was until I saw him standing at the podium. Is this guy already a superstar in your eyes, Stan?
He's pretty darn close. He's, I'd like to see him. The test usually is the second year. You want to see a guy be able to put it up, back to back to back. The way Correa, could. The one thing he's shown so far in one season doesn't seem to be as predisposed to injury as Correa was early in his career.
Yeah, no, that's true. I'm pretty surprised that Jeremy Pena didn't find himself on Rookie of the Year ballots as a finalist. You got Rutschman and Julio Rodriguez and Kwan. Yeah. But Jeremy Pena's there winning World Series MVPs and Gold Gloves, hitting 20 homers, and he's not on the list. It was surprising to me, to say the least. Also surprising to me, Stan, Dusty Baker wins his first World Series to add to his 2,000-plus wins, 9th all-time. They bring him back on a 1-year deal. Are you surprised it was only 1 year? I get that he's 73, 74 years old, and maybe he doesn't want a 5-year deal, but I was a little shocked it was only 1 year for a guy who kind of navigated you through those tough waters after the 2017 scandal and then wins a World Series for you.
Well, the owner of the Astros, let's be frank, is coming off as a little bit of an ingrate. Dusty Baker and James Click did an amazing job for him over the last 3 seasons. Mm-hmm. Navigating that team out of a sort of a moral malaise and putting a real good face forward on it. No questions surrounding this team winning the championship this year.
Sure.
By the way, they just signed Rafael Montero to a 3-year, $34.5 million extension.
Yeah, Zach was telling me about that.
This is a guy who had a 6 ERA last year. Mm-hmm. But Crane, I think he's been smitten with sort of wanting to be owner GM to a certain extent right now. He clearly had a disagreement with Click over that Contreras trade. Mm-hmm. He wanted to trade Jose Urquidy to the Cubs for Wilson Contreras. Crane stepped in and nixed that deal, and since then their relationship's been very icy. It's very insulting. Guy wins a World Series at his age, and they've also fired one of his assistant general managers, Scott Powers, mm-hmm. who left a big job with the Dodgers to go to Houston just about a year ago, I think. So it's a bad look. It's something the fans there in Houston, though, they're going through euphoria of winning a World Series, so they won't question their owner, but it's a bad look to me.
Yeah, I saw it written somewhere that the offer for Glick, 1 year, $1 million, that's like nothing.
Yeah.
It's basically an invitation for him to leave, because why on earth would he accept that? And it makes me wonder if maybe Dusty Baker was kind of like, I won the World Series, I don't really need to do this anymore. And maybe ownership came to him and was like, look, how about we agree to a 1-year deal, because it's a bad look to lose our manager and our general manager right after winning a World Series. Get us through next year, and then we'll play it by ear after that. Do you think that there's any chance that was a scenario that played out?
No, not really. I think Dusty was just Dusty at this point. He went through a very similar scenario in Washington without a World Series. Mm-hmm. He came to that contract was over, and they were willing to give him a 1-year deal, and he thought he was deserving of a 2 or 3 year deal, and they reach loggerheads there. I think Dusty's just happy. He knows, as great as he is at 73 years old, there's not that many teams that are going to hire you. You know, so he's willing at this point. He knows he's got a team that can contend for the foreseeable future, and I think he's happy just to be wanted and to go year to year right now. I guess if he wins a championship next year and really wanted a 2-year deal, they'd probably relent at that point and give him a 2-year deal.
Yeah,
but it's clear Crane wants to sort of make this team over in his image. David Stearns, clearly Crane might have an eye on him down the road. So who knows what he'll end up with. I'll tell you one thing. He could do a lot worse than calling Dan Duquette, who's not working in baseball right now.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what Dan Duquette would be able to do if he wasn't as handcuffed as it would seem that he was when he was with the
No question about it. We'll talk to Dan about that Monday night. Ross Grimsley and I have him on at 6 o'clock Monday night. Yeah.
Stan, while we're on the topic of the Astros, you look at that Montero deal being $35 million, and you look at the numbers he put up, and he hasn't been that good, over the previous year. Is that a sign that the market's going to be very rich this year, that guys are going to be paid more than you might have expected?
Well, just like in football this year, the wide receiver position went wacko. It looks like relief pitchers. I mean, we've got a relief pitcher in Edwin Diaz, who is the poster boy if you're going to give the first contract of $20 million plus a year for a reliever. He signs for that. Suarez got a huge deal. You probably know the numbers better than I did, but I think it was more like a 3 for 30 or 4 for 45 or something like that for Roberto Suarez. And this guy now gets, geez whiz. What's he getting? He's got about $11 million a year, right?
Right, yeah. Around that.
11.5. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
It's a lot for a guy who hasn't really put up that great of numbers. Yeah, I think that's gonna.
Right.
I think that's gonna be a sign about how the market's gonna work. Certainly affect the Orioles.
Market's going to go nuts. It's going to go nuts. I just played this little stupid fantasy baseball game. I missed Andrew Chafin early in the on draft day. I missed him. Scott Garceau got him late or picked him up very early in the season. And I was reading about him that he was making last year $6.5 million with I think a $7 million option this year. He turned down the option. He's probably going to get a contract in the range of Montero, and he ended up having a really solid year last year. I'd love to see him on the Orioles, but I think that he's a little too rich for the Orioles' interest right now. Orioles are still they're still adept. They've shown in Elias that he can feed at the bottom of the market right now and get some good players.
You also mentioned that the free agency market is going to go crazy, and you look at what happened with the CBA last year and how guys really couldn't sign for a large majority of that offseason, and they really could only sign at certain periods, whether it was really early or really late. Do you think that could make a lot of guys want to sign early and have that job security, what they didn't really have last year?
That's a really excellent point. It might impact. I expect the market to move pretty quick this year.
Okay.
Because of what you said. Yeah, a lot of players got sort of take it or leave it deals late last year.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at this market for relief pitchers right now. I think it's really going to explode because you look, if all things are equal, that's what really won the championship for the Astros, was that bullpen that was totally, almost unhittable.
Stan, are
they
there
had six deep in the bullpen.
Stan, are there any relievers on the market that you have your eye on? For me, kind of older guys, but Adam Ottavino and David Robertson had really nice bounce-back years this past year, and I think they could be had for a lesser price than those premium relievers are going for right now. Are there any relievers in your eyes that would be worth the venture for the Orioles right now?
Well, Chafin is somebody I really like, but I think he's moved into that. I think he accurately knows the market. And I think I think like a team like the Red Sox is going to pay him like $10 million plus. Mm-hmm. Robertson, I was reading, is like an $8 million deal right now. There's rumors the Mets may pick him up to solidify getting to Diaz. I'm not a big Ottavino fan. I'm really not. They'll add one or two pieces to the bullpen, but again, it's a numbers game, and that's not something, to me, you go chasing at the top of the market. You can shop at that there's a lot of arms out there. So yeah. While I'd love to get a Chafin, that is one guy I'd like. I think they'll shop at a little cheaper price point than that.
Yeah, and they've shown to be fairly adept at getting good value out of some lesser-known players, lesser-known pitchers in their bullpen. I don't expect them to be swimming in the deep waters of free agent relievers. Was surprised that they kind of weren't swimming in the waters for Jordan Lyles. Instead of picking up the $11 million option, they buy him out for $1 million. This is a guy who led the team in wins, led the team in innings pitched, quality starts, and actually had better numbers this past season than he did in 2021, which earned him that $7 million contract. Were you surprised that they didn't pick up his option, and do you think there's a chance he could still be brought back but at a lower number?
That's a tricky one. I kind of waxed and waned on him. You know, there were times I'd watch him pitch. Like, I forget, what did he have? Remember, he got sick. Was it just the stomach virus? That wasn't COVID, was it?
No, it was the stomach virus because he came back and pitched against Boston. Right, and
but
he
had
8 runs.
He had like a couple terrible outings at a key moment, and I go, well, that's it. And then all of a sudden, his last 2 outings, I think, were really good. Mm-hmm. He's, to me, I like the sign this sends that they want to do better than Lyles with their free agent dollars, you know. And I guess if he's hanging there and the market's playing out in such a way and they could get him for 8 and he got the buyout, which makes it 9, you know, I could see them possibly revisiting a contract. But I actually think he'll get picked up, you know, by a good team. You know, I think a good team like the Yankees, for example, say, hey, this guy would be a terrific 5th starter. You know, he's shown some durability. So I don't think they'll revisit with him, but it's possible.
And so I'm glad that you said that you think that the Orioles are thinking they can do better. So you think that them not picking up the $11 million options because they feel like they have bigger fish to fry, basically, and that they're going to spend more for somebody that's better rather than paying $11 million.
I didn't say necessarily spend more right away. You know, if you use some of your surplus in the outfield, you know, I'm revisiting my thoughts on Lucas Giolito. Sure. I still think he'd be a perfect guy, and he probably taps in this coming season under what Lyles would have made. So I'm not saying that they're definitely going to go out and spend more money on a free agent right now, but I think they think that they can do better in the trade market. And that's where I get to the 2 guys that really stand out to me are Giolito with the White Sox, and I love this kid Luzardo with the Marlins, Jesus Luzardo.
Yeah, I think that we can agree that the Orioles are going to be active on the trade market too. I think that that's really where they acquire their starting pitching this offseason is more so through trade than through free agency. Of course, they've got another...
I think they'll...
Go ahead.
I think they'll try and up their offensive through some reasonable options on the free agent market offensively.
And see, and that's where I kind of come to a little bit of a conundrum, Stan, because I look at what's available on the free agent market, and if you're not talking about Because they're probably not going to be in on guys like Aaron Judge or Carl. They might be in on Carlos Correa just because they've been tied to him in the past, but chances are they're not in on a guy like Judge or Trey Turner or any of those big names.
They're not. There's no point. They're just not set up right now, in my opinion, to shop in that market for a shortstop. They've got, if they really want to put their best player at shortstop, it's Gunnar Henderson.
Sure.
You know,
so
and get a cheaper third baseman, like the guy, you know, like a Justin Turner, who I'm very interested in. Is Turner. I think he's the perfect guy now. Whether he'll leave the Dodgers or not, I don't know. They didn't offer him. They didn't pick him up on that $16 million option.
Mm-hmm.
He was the last guy that became a free agent on Friday, I think.
So
Thursday or Friday.
When you think about the Orioles adding to their offense, you're thinking about guys like a Justin Turner rather than somebody that you would. I don't know how much fear he invokes in the opposition. I don't know how much longer he makes your lineup, but you're thinking of guys like that rather than somebody like an Abreu or a JD Martinez to put in the middle of the order.
I'm not a huge Martinez fan at this point in time. I think Martinez probably makes I think he and Turner are in the same ballpark this year of $14 or $15 million. Maybe you could get, to me, if I were the Orioles, I'd make a very quick attempt at signing him to a 2-year contract for like $25 million. That's what I would do right now, Justin Turner. Martinez's bat, to me, has slowed down a little bit, you know. I'm not as interested in him. Abreu, I would certainly be interested in Jose Abreu.
Yeah, he's been linked to the Cubs or to go back to the White Sox. I haven't seen anybody really talking about him to the Orioles, even though I think that would be the perfect marriage for Abreu, for be that presence in the middle of the order and the veteran leadership knows how to.
I agree. I think he's a 2-year $40 million, or maybe even if it gets to be a bidding war, could be a 3-year $57 million or something like that. But he's a perfect guy if they could work out the dollars. You know, he'd be legendary here for a couple of years.
I think he would be too. Now, Stan, with this offseason beginning, one of the first orders of business for the Orioles was to reinstate John Means from the 60-day IL. One of the corresponding moves that they made for that, they DFA'd Yusniel Diaz. He cleared waivers, but he refused the outright to AAA. He elected free agency. He was supposed to be the centerpiece of that Manny Machado trade, and he got one Major League at bat in his time with the organization. Is there any reason to lament over this, or do we kind of just shrug our shoulders at this point and say la vie?
You know, that's a good question. There's not a lot of lament because he just, you know, I think they got snookered on him a little bit. The Dodgers paid him big money to sign him, but I'm telling you, the Dodgers throw money around, you know, like crazy. And he did hit the home run or 2 home runs in the showcase game, you know, the All-Star game for the Futures game. So it looked like, boy, we really got a lot out of that deal. You know, I think the Orioles should just be fortunate that they might have gotten a sneaky good pick in Dean Kramer, you know, who it looks like he might be a really solid number 3, real solid number 3, maybe even potentially like a 2 out of that deal, and you just move on. You know, the clear mistake the Orioles made was that Peter wanted to try and hold on and wasn't proactive the year before, when a player like Machado still has sort of a maximum value when the team acquiring him is going to get him for a year plus a half a year. You know, when you're only offering 2 months of service, you can't get a lot back. And I think Dan did a pretty damn good job in that deal.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, Zach Pop came over in that deal, I believe.
Zach Pop will never know, had he not needed Tommy John surgery. The club, you know, I still maintain, and you and I talked about it, Paul, when you first took over the show. Pop was a guy that I really would have protected over some of these 4th or 5th string. Like they they protected Austin Wynns over Zach Pop.
Yeah.
Really, who would you rather have now? You know, they picked up
absolutely.
3 guys. They picked up 3 guys this offseason that are sort of the equivalent to Austin Wynns.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and actually, Stan, that leads me to the next thing. Yusniel Diaz, he wasn't the only Orioles minor leaguer to elect free agency rather than stick in the minors with the Orioles. DJ Stewart, Matt Harvey, Jacob Nottingham, Brett Cumberland, Lewis Head, and Alex Wells were some of the names that stuck out to me. We don't know what the backup catcher is going to look like in Baltimore in 2023. And a guy like Jacob Nottingham or Brett Cumberland had an opportunity, at least right now, to maybe battle for that position, and they both elected free agency. Did that kind of come as a surprise to you, considering the Orioles don't have anybody currently in-house to take that role?
Didn't really think much about it, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Those guys are, you want to come out with a smart pick out of that, I guess. Didn't they sign or work some type of deal out with Ben Boom?
They did. It's a split contract, just like Jake Cave.
Yeah. So I think that sort of, I mean, they'll look around, and if they see somebody, I don't think those guys, Cumberland or the other catcher you mentioned, are really, they
Not really
weren't
in
big
play.
decisions.
Sure.
No, and none of those other guys. First of all, DJ, I like DJ as a kid. He's got way too much miss in his swing.
Yeah.
And a fresh start somewhere else is probably the best thing for him.
Sure.
Maybe with a team like the Pirates or something like that.
For me, Matt Harvey, I guess it's not really much of a head scratcher given where his age is and his past successes. But you look at how he's been in decline. You look at the fact that he's got all that baggage from the Tyler Skaggs ordeal. And the Orioles were the team that was willing to give him another opportunity, even though he didn't make it back to the Major League roster because they didn't really need him to. I'm a little surprised, I guess, that he wasn't willing to give it another shot here. Or do you think maybe the writing's just on the wall for him, and do you really expect another team to take a chance on him?
If I were Matt Harvey, I'd be shopping in Korea or Japan right now.
That makes a lot of sense.
Would be shopping.
That makes a lot of sense.
I mean, he's still young enough that if he were able to tap into something, that there'd be an upside if he went to Japan for 2 years and really put up big numbers. He might get one more 2-year major league contract, but he's only going to be able to get like a minor league deal to come to camp, and then it's he's just a piece of meat at that point in time.
Yeah, I never think about the Japanese or Korean baseball leagues when it comes to these guys, but that actually makes perfect sense for a guy like Matt Harvey to go pitch over there. And
he's a little old, but the fact he's got a little bit of name to him that some owner in Japan would probably give him about $4 million for a year to try out there.
He'd make more money there than he's going to make in the majors, for sure.
No question about it.
And finally, Stan, MLB Trade Rumors, they put out their top 50 free agents and their predictions for their contract and where they're going to go. The Orioles, despite it being rumored that they're going to be spending this offseason, they were only linked to 4 of the top 50, and that's Jamison Taillon at number 14. They were 4 years, $56 million is projected contract. Taijuan Walker at number 16, 4 years, $52 million. Sean Manaea at number 17, 4 years, $52 million, and J.D. Martinez, 2 years, $30 million. We already know your stance on J.D. Martinez, but pitchers like Taijuan Walker and Sean Manaea, what are your thoughts on those guys at those numbers?
Taillon's an interesting guy because, the pedigree of being a former number one pick of the Pirates and all that. That's probably about the right price point for him. I used to love Sean Manaea. In fact, I made one of the worst trades I ever did in fantasy baseball. I so wanted him that I traded Bo Bichette for him and Willie Castro and watched my season go down the tubes. One thing to keep in mind about Sean Manaea, and I made the mistake one day of letting him pitch at Fenway Park, And remember, the Orioles, while won't be playing them 18 times, they'll still play them 12 times, I think.
14.
So that means 14.
Yeah.
That means a couple trips to Fenway Park. Sean Manaea, in 4 starts at Fenway Park, has an earned run average of 15.70. In 14 innings pitched, he allowed 39 hits, 2 walks, struck out just 11, gave up 6 home runs in 14 and third inning, and his whip was 2.86 at Fenway Park over these last few years. Now, at Yankee Stadium, he's pitched 3 games, 17 innings pitched, with 14 batters allowed, so he's got a whip of about 0.8, 0.85, 24 strikeouts, and a 1.04 ERA, no home runs in 17 innings at Yankee Stadium.
Wow.
He's just wildly too inconsistent for me to put that much money into him. If you could sign him on a 1-year, $10 million contract, I'd do it in a minute. But somebody will pay Manaea more than that. I don't think he'll get a 4-year $50. I think he's liable to get a 2-year $20 or something like that. And that might be a tad rich for the Orioles' blood. Taijuan Walker has had a really nice comeback over the last couple seasons. He'd be a solid addition, you know.
I agree. Now that would be kind of swimming in the mid-rotation starter waters rather than the ace.
You know what you're doing though. You're swimming in the mid-rotation, but you're also, again, you know, I have an awful lot of faith in Chris Hart. I don't think he walks on water, but I think there's a bump you might be able to get if you bring a Manaea or a Taijuan in to pitch in this ballpark as it's presently constituted now, and working with Chris Holt and the analytics people of the Orioles. That's got to be, for a mid-range guy, that's got to be an attractive kind of, perfecta there, where you've got 3 things going on, a confluence of things: pitching coach, ballpark, uptick in the interest in the team and all that. So Baltimore would be an attractive place for a pitcher, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so. And do you think, and quickly, do you think that the Orioles are more likely to target left-handed pitching because it would force teams to bat more right-handed guys, and that wall in left field would be even more so come into play?
Yeah. I mean, that's why I'd be interested in Manaea, because he's left-handed.
Sure.
But I hold Jesus Luzardo and the ability to get him in a higher probability than Manaea at this point.
Well, the offseason's just begun. We're going to see what they're going to do. Got a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah, it's going to be wild. It's going to be wild.
And we are looking forward to it. Stan, we know you got Dan Duquette coming up on Monday. What else you got for us this coming week?
Wednesday afternoon at 4 o'clock, we've got one of the main executives of Live Casino Hotel, Joe Weinberg, with us to talk about the casino, Live Casino and FanDuel over there, what they're doing with their sports book and getting ready for it to go online over the next couple weeks. And then on Thursday at 7 o'clock, the executive director of the Maryland Lottery and Sports Gaming, John Martin, will join us. So busy week of shows this week.
It sounds like it's saying we will talk to you next week. Hopefully we'll be talking about some moves that the Orioles have made. Until then, we'll talk to you soon.
All righty. Talk to you. Go Justin Turner. Bye.
Yes, see ya. That was Stan the Fan, Charles. It was 2 great shows for you every week. Every Monday night, Stan and former Orioles pitcher Ross Grimsley visit with a different guest from the world of sports. And every Thursday night, Stan and Gary Stein chat with a different newsmaker from the world of sports. And I'm sorry, with the world of baseball for Stan and Ross Grimsley. This week, Stan and Ross were joined by former Orioles manager Dave Tremblay, and Stan also caught up with Baltimore Sports Collectibles Danny Black. You can find these shows under the videos tab at facebook.com/PressBoxSports or at PressBoxOnline.com/video. Stan and Ross are back on Monday with another great show where we'll have former Orioles Executive Vice President Dan Duquette on the show, so stay tuned for that and more from Stan the Fan. Charles, Zach, I think that Zach was unsure about whether or not he wanted to do his sounding off segment today because it was on James Glick. Why do I keep calling him Glick? Like Jiminy Glick from like the early 2000s. On James Glick. Why don't we push?
It's fine.
Sounding off.
I'll put that. Why don't we what's the word I'm looking for? Why don't we combine it with final thoughts, and I can just make that my final thought.
Okay, yeah, we'll do that because we are running up. We always seem to run long with Stan. We're running a little short on time here. So what we're gonna do is we are going to catch our first break. Today's show brought to you by the Toyota Tacoma, which comes in a range of models and trim lines. You can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. So check out buyatoyota.com for deals now on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. When we come back in from BaltimoreBaseball.com, Rich Dubroff joins the program to talk the Orioles offseason. That and more next on the Bet Around.
Glory Days Grill's Oktoberfest menu is now running. It's one of their most popular seasonal menus all year. It features the chicken schnitzel, the Oktoberfest brewer's platter, the brewer's sausage sandwich, the Bavarian burger with a pretzel bun, the cheddar ale soup, the slam dunk pretzels, and the apple cobbler. All of these meals pair well with Oktoberfest beers and Angry Orchard on draft. Dine in or order online at glorydaysgrill.com and pick up your favorites to take home. Glory Days Grill, great food, good sports.
What's up, everyone? This is Tyus Bowser, and I'm excited to tell you that I'm back for Season 2 of the Tyus Bowser Show in partnership with Pressbox and Great H Memorabilia. Join us on Tuesday nights throughout the season as I'll be heading all over town with my special guests. And of course, our co-hosts, Glenn and Rita. Or is it Rita and Glenn? What is it? I look forward to meeting you guys and talking a little bit about football and a lot about life. And if you happen to miss the show, you can now catch a replay Friday nights on 105.7 The Fan. Get all of your details for the Tyus Bowser Show right now at PressBoxOnline.com/Bowser.
The next Tyus Bowser Show is Tuesday, November 15th at Mother's North Grill in Timonium. It's brought to you by Maryland Vascular Specialists and the all-new Ginsu Kamado Grill.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel, the ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
The Baltimore County Police Department is hiring. Entry-level officers start at close to $59,000 a year with a $10,000 bonus. Some restrictions apply. Plus a great retirement plan, medical, dental, and vision insurance, advancement to specialized units, tuition reimbursement, 15 sick days earned per calendar year, and even further incentives for military members and veterans. If you have a passion for service and want a career for life, visit joinbaltimorecountypd.com or call 410-887-5542. You must be a United States citizen, possess a valid driver's license, and have a high school diploma or GED equivalent. The Baltimore County Police Department is an equal opportunity employer.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows that the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
Experience the best in Kamado Grilling, a complete outdoor cooking appliance. The Ginsu Kamado Grill allows anyone to sear, grill, bake, and smoke all types of food. Designed for efficiency and function, the Ginsu Kamado Grill upholds the enduring legacy of the iconic Ginsu brand. The Ginsu Kamado Grill is perfect to cook all year round, is great for parties, and ideal for tailgating with your friends. Reserve your Ginsu Kamado Grill today at ginsugrills.com and get $100 off on your pre-order when you use the promo code TAILGATE. That's ginsugrills.com. Reserve yours today.
Welcome back into the Bat Around, coming to you live from our Towson studios on a Saturday morning in November. In just a moment, we're going to have from BaltimoreBaseball.com, Rich Dubroff back on the show. But first, I want to remind you that the next Tyus Bowser show is Tuesday, November 15th at Mother's North Grill in Timonium. Tyus and a special guest will join Rita and Glenn. This is worded so weirdly. Tyus and a special guest will join Rita and Glenn for the Tyus Bowser Show at Mother's North Grill in Timonium. This is your opportunity to meet Baltimore football stars while getting the inside scoop on the purple and black. The Tyus Bowser Show is a partnership of Pressbox and Great Eights Memorabilia, and it's brought to you by Maryland Vascular Specialists and the all-new Ginsu Grill. Find out more at PressBoxOnline.com/Bowser, and if you happen to miss the Tyus Bowser Show, don't worry. You can check it out Friday nights throughout the season on 105.7 The Fan. Joining us now from BaltimoreBaseball.com, he is Rich Dubroff. Rich, good morning. Thanks for taking some time for us today.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, Paul.
Glad to have you back on the show. And Rich, the offseason has begun. Orioles taking care of some in-house things to start their offseason. John Means reinstated from the 60-day IL. Have you heard anything about Means' progress? I know he started playing catch not that long ago. Any updates on him?
No, he said, they won't really get going until, probably after the first of the year.
Gotcha.
So this is a long term thing. They were happy with, he was happy with how it was healing. But, to guess on, when he'll return is really quite foolish right now. We don't know.
Yeah, I'm not expecting him before June at the earliest. In my opinion,
that sounds about right. I guess.
Now, another pitcher who I was expecting to be here this year, and he's not going to be, is Jordan Lyles. The Orioles balled out his contract at $1 million instead of picking up the $11 million option. Led the team in innings pitched, quality starts, wins. For you, Rich, was this a surprising move, or was it kind of the writing on the wall for you at the end of the year?
No, well, I wasn't sure. I went, I was going both ways at times, but I thought they would not. I thought that they would not pick it up, just because I thought that they would try and use the money elsewhere. Though, I mean, I would have, because I thought that he was, good enough to, have around with all the question marks around the rotation. So this just puts more pressure on them to try and, find, veteran starters to augment what they have now, which is a lot. I mean, what they have now is actually quite a lot. But we just don't. But there's just a lot of question marks about it. I mean, there are already, 8 or 9 candidates.
Sure.
For the starting rotation. So, and that's good. But I think they just need, probably 2 more guys who are accomplished veteran major league starters who they don't really have to worry about innings. I mean, that's sort of the problem they face with some of the younger pitchers.
Now, is this are these pitchers? Do you expect them to come more so through free agency or more so via trade, or is it just whatever works out best for the Orioles? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I'm thinking. I have no idea. Because everybody keeps asking, I don't know what they're going. I don't know what they're going to do because they haven't telegraphed it. I mean, they're open to, they're open to anything. But I guess more free agency. Because if they're gonna trade, they'd have to trade some prospects. But they want somebody who's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd want somebody who could give you at least, who at least has, a couple of years before free agency. You don't want to trade for somebody who's, going to be a 1-year rental. I mean, there are times to do that, but this is, you don't do that in November or December of the year, of the year before. So I'm just really intrigued by what they're going to do because I can only guess.
Well, and Rich, I'm glad that you said that because it's okay that you don't know, because nobody knows, because we've never seen a Mike Elias-led team in Baltimore with John Angelos as the main figurehead in ownership. We've never seen that regime in this.
I don't think John Angelos. I don't think John Angelos is a figurehead. John Angelos is not a figure.
I used the wrong terminology. I that's not what I meant. But I meant like John Angelos is the guy who's running the show for ownership. It's the same family owning the team, but it's essentially different ownership because it's John Angelos and not Peter Angelos basically running the show right now. And that's what I meant. I used the wrong terminology. So my apologies there. But we've never seen Mike Elias and John Angelos with the team ready to compete go into an off season. So we have no idea what they're going to do. And Mike Elias, he said it's lift off from here, and that's been the popular phrase, is it's lift off from here. And then he goes into
but
the
that
GM.
Doesn't mean but you can interpret that a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
That means, to me, that means the team is ready to go now.
Sure.
That doesn't mean we're going to spend $200 million or $300 million on free agent contracts.
Sure.
It could, but I think that just means the team has what it needs, to contend, and needs, help plugging those holes, that we know about.
Right.
So I think that's what that means, and people interpret that as being, they're going to go, wild and spend. And he has said, well, they have, he said he has more money to spend now,
mm-hmm.
Or they're going to spend more money now than they have in the past. And when people ask me, I just say that I think that they are going to spend more money than they have in the past, but not so much that people, as maybe the wildest fans want them to.
Sure.
Going after all those top shelf free agents. I don't, maybe they do. I don't think that happens, but we'll see.
Yeah, and look, he didn't back off from his comments at the GM meetings. In an interview with John Morosi, he said, we're going to get started with addressing our Major League needs ASAP, and I expect a very active offseason for us. It's going to be different than the rebuilding kind of offseasons that I've had since I've been here. So with that in mind, you expect that he's going to go out and he's going to do some things to try and make this team better. But you're absolutely right, Rich. Him spending more money than they have in the past. I mean, their biggest free agent acquisition was Jordan Lyles at 1 year, $7 million. Right, so it's not going to be hard to spend a little bit more than that, but shouldn't expect Aaron Judge to be walking through the doors of the warehouse anytime soon. However, is Mike Elias kind of setting himself up for failure with the fan base if he doesn't make some big moves based off of his comments?
Mike Elias, for the most part, during the time he's been here, has been a popular target of fans.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's judged. If the team wins, they think he's doing great. If the team doesn't win, they don't think he's doing great. And so I think that but I think that if they don't spend wildly, they'll, or aggressively, then I think that people will be, disappointed. I think in some ways, he was setting himself up for that, but he doesn't want to, but maybe they have a plan. If there is, if one of these top shelf free agents is irresistible and maybe their market isn't quite as great as it was. I mean, Correa's market wasn't as great. And of course, last year was the aberrational kind of off season. But if one of those free agents doesn't have the market that they expect, then maybe they swoop in. But, I know you read, MLB trade rumors and you saw, I don't know if you saw their list of their 50 top free agents, and they guess, at those contracts, which, aren't bad guesses. But I mean, you really think the Orioles are going to spend $200 or $300 million on a top shelf free agent?
I have no idea. I'd be inclined to think no, but that's also because of what I've known from the Orioles over my 30-plus years of being on this planet. I have no idea what they're going to do. I don't think it's somebody like Aaron Judge or Trey Turner, but, I mean, it could be, I guess. Look, they were only linked to 4 guys in that entire top 50 free agent list by MLB trade rumors, and 3 of them were pitchers, and the other one was J.D. Martinez, who is, a guy who's getting up there in age, but can still swing the bat a little bit. Those aren't the guys they were linked to aren't huge moves by any stretch.
Yeah, but what's interesting though, I'm trying to remember again because I remember I wrote something this week about what Jim Bowden wrote in The Athletic about his top 25 free agents. He linked like 7 of them.
Yeah, I saw that one
with the Orioles. And John Heyman had his top 30, and he linked none of them with the Orioles, and those lists were similar. So
John Heyman thinks everybody's going to the Yankees. That's why.
Well, it seems a lot of free agents too. But there's always there are a lot of interesting things here, and one of them is Mike Elias has a very, very sweet soft spot for draft picks, and it's going to be very interesting to see if he would part with one of those draft picks to sign, Nathan Eovaldi or Chris Bassett, who ordinarily I would think would be the kind of players that they would be targeting. I mean, I think that there's some other pitchers out there, like Michael Wacha.
Sure.
That's somebody who I think is an interesting name that's sort of realistic for them.
Mm-hmm. And he had a good year.
Yeah, good year. He pitched great against. He pitched great against them. The games I saw him, and that's the kind of player I think is more realistic. Where, they'd be spending more money than they spent on Jordan Lyles, but they're not going out and spending Jacob deGrom money or Justin Verlander kind of money. So I think that's sort of being realistic. But I would think that Bassett and Eovaldi would be guys who would be, intrigue the Orioles. But I'm going to see if Elias is intrigued enough to want to risk, which would want to risk. It's actually his third draft, the Orioles' third draft pick. Would be in the competitive balance round. So he loves, and he loves accumulating draft picks. So
exactly.
That's going to be interesting.
And so, do you think that the Orioles, given the fact that they moved that big wall back in left field, do they target more?
They did? What happened?
Oh, you didn't know? They moved it back like 30 feet and raised it like 12 feet. I'm surprised you know about this.
Oh, I know there were some people. Yes, some people who seem to mention that a lot.
Yeah, well, it's going to have a huge impact on what they do I think in free agency and adding to this ball club. Do you think it means that now that they're going to be targeting more left-handed pitchers to keep other opposing teams batting a more right-handed heavy lineup, and in turn, I'm assuming they're going to go after more left-handed bats. You look at some of their top prospects, a lot of left-handed bats in there, and it's a shorter porch in right field. Are they going for these lefty free agents on the market?
Well, you might. But I think that I was trying to look and see. I don't know that there are a lot of great left-handed starters out there, are there?
Not really. I mean, Sean Manaea might be the best one that you could really kind of go after at this point. Yeah, I'd have to look further, but maybe something in a trade. I don't know.
Yeah, because most of them seem to be, right-handed. But I mean, I think that you're making a good point because it's normal. It's normal for teams to sort of tailor their lineups, around the ballpark they have. And Rutschman is a much better hit. You switch it, a much better hitter, left-handed. Much better. Gunnar Henderson's, a left-handed hitter. Mm-hmm. Kyle Stowers. So those are all intriguing, and they still have Mullins.
Callister's
you know,
coming
you
up
don't
in the
wanna-
wings.
Yeah, but you don't want to go over. You know, you don't want to go overboard because look when when the Red Sox threw Rich Hill at them.
Yeah.
You know, when you get a good left, you don't want to go crazy over it. You don't want to get seven left. You don't want to get necessarily seven left-handed hitters. Who can't hit? Who can't hit against lefties.
Right. And
So,
to be fair, I think that they would probably, if they do go after a left-handed guy, it was somebody who has pretty even splits or can at least hit lefties to a better degree than what we've seen from a guy like Cedric Mullins just this past year long. Because he hit like 277 against lefties in 2021. I ultimately, Rich,
but he hit very poorly. He hit very poorly against lefties in 2022.
Yeah, he hit like 200 against him in 2022.
Yeah, a little bit. But I mean, the J.D. Martinez thing that you mentioned is, I actually hadn't thought of him, but he's not that's not a crazy idea.
And that's a guy who still has gap-to-gap power, still has a ton of double potential, and a lot of his home runs go to the opposite field, so it's almost like signing a left-handed bat with J.D. Martinez.
Yeah.
So the Orioles do have a little bit of a roster crunch, Rich, when it comes to their infield. You have Ramon Arias. He wins a Gold Glove at third base. You have Jorge Mateo won the Fielding Bible Award for baseball's best defensive shortstop. Gunnar Henderson, for all intents and purposes, is going to play on the left side of the infield. I think we can all agree on that. And you have Jordan Westberg, who has a shot to be your opening day second baseman, who won Minor League Player of the Year for the organization. You have a ton of guys for not a ton of positions and a ton of prospects that could come up and take over some spots. What do the Orioles do? Is Arias even guaranteed? Not guaranteed, that's not the right word, but does Arias even have a job if he's on this roster come spring training? Because I don't know where he's going to play.
Well, they're going to need super utility. They're going to need, guys who can play a lot of positions. And one thing he can do is play, he obviously can play third and he plays second, and he's played short. He's played short.
Sure.
And having somebody who is a super utility player would be it's a really good thing to have.
Yeah.
And especially a guy who's been a veteran, because you're only going to have 4 bench players.
Right.
One of them's going to be a catcher, and one of them's probably going to be Ryan McKenna.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have a super utility guy, and then another outfielder who can play, all the outfield positions.
Right.
So, it's going to be hard to make. It's going to be real hard to make this club now. All of a sudden, they've gotten, a lot of they've gotten a lot of talent, and as you allude to, there's more on the way with with Westberg and Joey Ortiz.
Right. And Connor Norby, for that matter. Now,
and Kobe and maybe Kobe Mayo.
Exactly. Although I think he eventually ends up as a first baseman, although he has such a good arm. But I would imagine he ends up as a first baseman. So then, Rich, I ask you, is Mateo? We know he was the best defensive shortstop in baseball. He was a huge snub for the Gold Glove, not even being a finalist. Led the American League in stolen bases. He's an electric player. But, Rich, he hit 221 with a 267 on-base percentage. Now, Mike Elias said during the season that Mateo is going to be here in Baltimore for a long time. You're not going to say anything different about your starting shortstop, but is this a guy who you really can expect to be your starting shortstop on opening day when you're playing in the American League East and you're now a team that should be competitive and in contention?
Yeah, well, I think that I think Mateo is going to be on the club.
Mm-hmm.
They could certainly trade. They could certainly trade him.
Sure.
But he's, if you look at his WAR, it's really high.
Right. It is.
I mean, the defense is great. The defense is great. The offense was lagging. But I think that you can have 8 good, possibly let's say 8 decent, good to decent players. offensive players, and then maybe one maybe defensive guy who's not as great offensively. So.
Yeah, if you have a bunch of guys that hit 270 with 20 homers in your lineup, you can afford to have. And if that player is Jorge Mateo, who, like I said, he's an electric player. He's the speed, the defense. He's an exciting player. And what he did in July and August, I mean, this is his first real full season as an everyday player. What he did in July and August might be what he does in August and September next year now that he's gotten used to playing that many games and that many innings. So I do think he's got a spot on the team. I'm not sure if it's more so as a utility guy or as the everyday player. We'll see how the offseason plays out. Before we let
Well, it's probably not. You're probably not going to be able to have. You're probably not going to be able to have two utility guys.
Right.
If Urias is a utility guy, you probably can't have Mateo as a utility guy.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see any of these guys, aside from Gunnar, be traded this offseason. Like I said, it's such a roster crunch. There's not enough space for all of them. And Urias and Mateo are Gold Glove caliber defenders. They're going to want to play every day. So we're going to see how this plays out. That's why this offseason is so interesting, that amongst other things, Rich, is problems like this, which are certainly good problems to have. Before we let you go, Rich, Yusniel Diaz was designated for assignment. He cleared waivers. They outright him to Norfolk. He refused the assignment, and he elected free agency. He was supposed to be the centerpiece of the Manny Machado trade back in 2018.
Well, he was.
Well, yes, he was.
He was. He was the most coveted. He was the player that, he was the player that most people knew about.
Right.
And the player that was talked about at the time.
Right. And now you look back on it, and maybe the best player they got out of that deal is Dean Kramer.
Not maybe. It's not maybe. He was the best player they got.
Yeah. To this point, he certainly was. You're right. He certainly was the best player that they got. And now you have Yusniel Diaz, one major league at bat for the Orioles in all his time in the organization. Is this kind of like a what could have been, or more like a c'est la vie, it is what it is type of situation? Should people be lamenting this, or is it just it is what it is?
You never know what you're going to get with prospects.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to get with draft. You never know what you're going to get with draft choices. I mean, people can say, oh, well, they waited too long to deal Machado. And, we've heard that for, 5 years now. And say, oh, they could have gotten a better deal. But they got Dean Kramer. And to get, and he did well last year. And if he does well again in 2023, then, for a few months of Machado, who was going to walk anyway, I mean, it turns out not to be a horrible deal. It's just that the players were sort of overhyped.
Yeah.
When they, when they got there. I mean, you look at deals, and look at the one when the Orioles traded Dylan Bundy. They got 4 players from the Angels. One of them is Kyle Bradish, and that looks like so far. Right now, it looks like a really good deal.
Yep. Now,
one of those players, Isaac Matson's already out of the organization. He got some major league time. Wasn't good. Zach Peak and Kyle Bernovich, the other 2 pitchers, had Tommy John surgery. So we don't know how these things are going to, how they're going to turn out. That's why you do them in volume. The good thing is Elias did it in volume.
Yeah.
Jahmai Jones for Alex Cobb didn't work out so well.
Yeah.
So you say, oh, that didn't work out so well, but some of these others did.
Yeah.
I mean, people made fun of the guys that he got for Andrew Cashner, Prado and Romero, and Elio Prado and Nolbeth Romero. Well, those guys were teenagers when they made the trade. Cashner pitched poorly for the Red Sox and has been out of baseball, since then. And these guys are climbing the ladder, although, very slowly.
Yeah.
So, but they made so many of these trades, and none of them seem to have come back and bitten them.
Well, and you mentioned the Angels trades. You got Gene Pinto for for basically 2 months that you got out of Jose Iglesias. And Gene Pinto looks like he might be a legitimate pitching prospect in the organization. And you mentioned the trade with Dylan Bundy, and Kyle Bradish is a clear winner. I think I'd rather have him at this point than Dylan Bundy. But Isaac Mattson was the guy who was supposed to get to the big leagues and be something. Of all those guys, he was the one that you expected to be something. Like you said, he's already out of the organization. So you're absolutely right, Rich, that prospects, they're exactly that. They're prospects. And that's why I think that if in free agency, if you can sign a player that's already good, you don't not sign somebody because you have a prospect that might be, is I guess my overall point. Unless
you really think that they're that good. And it looks like Mike Elias has done a really good job at drafting.
I think he has.
I mean, when you look at what he's drafted, that part of the equation, I don't think could have gone much better.
Yeah, it's been. I mean, his first 2 draft picks have each been number 1 overall prospects in baseball. I think that's huge. It's been a wild success for Mike Elias since taking over the Orioles, and we'll see what this offseason does to add to that resume. Rich, before I let you go, what do you have coming up for BaltimoreBaseball.com?
Well, we're writing at least 5 days, 5 days a week on the weekends if there's news. So I'm actually not writing. This weekend, we're going to take do our mailbag on Monday, and then we're going to have we had a busy week this week with all the moves, and we'll have lots of moves, lots of news next week. I mean, we're having the Rookie of the Year voting on Monday, Manager of the Year voting on Tuesday, and then it's the deadline to add prospects to the 40-man roster on Tuesday, and on Friday it's the deadline to offer contracts. So that's those are all big stories that we're going to be covering, as well as whatever pops up.
Yeah, a lot of activity coming up for sure. Real quick, because I totally forgot to ask you about Manager of the Year and Rookie of the Year. It's the guys who I thought for Manager of the Year. It's going to be Brandon Hyde. It's going to be Terry Francona and Scott Service. Do you think that Hyde has a legitimate shot, or I'm thinking it's probably Scott Service, or honestly, I think it's either one of the other two, other than him.
Yeah, I would have voted for Hyde had I had a vote this year. I think it's going to be very close between Hyde and Francona. It's funny, I had a vote last year, and I voted for Service, and Kevin Cash won. But I think that I think it's 50-50. I mean, Francona has got a lot of supporters, but I'm not sure. I'll go hometown and say Brandon will win.
Yeah, I'm not sure that there was a better turnaround in all of baseball. There wasn't a better turnaround in all of baseball than what the Orioles did. So Brandon Hyde would have to have the inside track, but you would have thought that Jorge Mateo would have been a finalist for the Gold Glove, and he was not. So, and then real quick with the Rookie of the Year, it's Adley Rutschman, it's Julio Rodriguez, and is it Stephen Kwan? It's Stephen Kwan is the other one. I think that it's been Julio Rodriguez's award to lose, basically, since the show we put on in the Home Run Derby. Would you expect Adley Rutschman to finish second and then get that extra or get that year taken off before he gets to arbitration?
Well, I was a voter, so I can't talk about it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, you can ask me about it on Monday night when my vote after my vote is revealed.
Okay.
I can talk about it.
Understood. Rich, thank you so much for taking time with us. Always a pleasure when our paths cross. Let's talk again soon, all right?
Okay, my pleasure. Thank you, Paul.
You're welcome. Take care. That was Rich Dubroff from BaltimoreBaseball.com, kind enough to join us on a Saturday during the off season. And I know that I heard Rich on the Bruce Cunningham show last week, and he said that he won't be writing on the weekends anymore. He's just gonna be a Monday through Friday type of thing. So
it's hard to write on the weekends when you have limited news. For
right.
Sure.
Well, I think that Yeah, basically. So just in the offseason, won't be writing on the weekends, unless, like he says, unless there's a breaking story, right? So for him to take time on a Saturday to talk to us is certainly very gracious of him, and I am greatly appreciative of it. We got to catch our second break. I want to remind you that today's show is brought to you by Toys for Tots. Baltimore area Chick-fil-A restaurants invite you to support Toys for Tots today, Saturday, November 12th. Donate a new toy at any of their 11 Stuff the Truck locations and receive a free sandwich offer card as a thank you. Zach, you're a poor college student. Go donate a Tommy Hilfiger hoodie and get yourself a free sandwich offer card from Chick-fil-A. For more info, visit PressBoxOnline.com/Toy Drive. When we come back in, the Bet Around and Orioles banter.
Have you been to Guilford Hall Brewery? Located in Baltimore's Station North neighborhood, Guilford Hall Brewery breaks the craft brew mold with their great handcrafted microbrews and amazing Bavarian-style food selections. Join Guilford Hall 7 days a week for Orioles, Ravens, and all of your favorite college games. Make plans now to watch the big games, play trivia, or bring your dog for Yappy Hour. They even have free valet service on Friday and Saturday nights. Go to guilfordhall.com for a complete schedule of events, beer listings, and food and drink specials. We'll see you at Guilford Hall Brewery.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Receive a free Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich offer card as a thank you when you donate to Toys for Tots on Saturday, November 12th at any of the 13 Baltimore area Chick-fil-A Stuff the Truck event sites. Be one of the first 50 people to donate, and you will also get a free t-shirt. For a location list and more information, visit PressBoxOnline.com/Toy Drive.
Stan the Fan here, welcoming back one of my favorite sponsors, the Costas Inn. And everybody around Baltimore knows the Costas Inn is a great place to go and grab crabs, steaks, salads, soups, whatever's on your mind to eat in person. But did you know that the Costas Inn has upped their game? They are now one of the premier takeout places in Baltimore. Give them a call now to order your food, 410-477-1975. That's the Costas Inn, over 4100 North Point Boulevard.
The Baltimore County Police Department is hiring. Entry-level officers start at close to $59,000 a year with a $10,000 bonus. Some restrictions apply. Plus a great retirement plan, medical, dental, and vision insurance, advancement to specialized units, tuition reimbursement, 15 sick days earned per calendar year, and even further incentives for military members and veterans. If you have a passion for service and want a career for life, visit joinbaltimorecountypd.com or call 410-887-5542. You must be a United States citizen, possess a valid driver's license, and have a high school diploma or GED equivalent. The Baltimore County Police Department is an equal opportunity employer.
Sports betting has come to Maryland, and we're ready to help you win some money. Tune in for Simply the Bets every Tuesday morning at 11:40. FanDuel Sportsbook assistant GM Leon Twyman and VSiN's Aaron Oster join the guys every week to give you all of the info you need and offer you a few winners. And every other Thursday at 11:40, tune in for Weekend at Bookies as Andrew Stecca and Alloy Sports' Brad Kronthal help make you some money for the weekend. So come win some money with us on Simply the Bets every Tuesday and Weekend at Bookies every other Thursday. Brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio. Watch at YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline.
Experience the best in Kamado Grilling, a complete outdoor cooking appliance. The Ginsu Kamado Grill allows anyone to sear, grill, bake, and smoke all types of food. Designed for efficiency and function, the Ginsu Kamado Grill upholds the enduring legacy of the iconic Ginsu brand. The Ginsu Kamado Grill is perfect to cook all year round, is great for parties, and ideal for tailgating with your friends. Reserve your Ginsu Kamado Grill today at ginsugrills.com and get $100 off on your pre-order when you use the promo code TAILGATE. That's ginsugrills.com. Reserve yours today.
Welcome back into the Bat Around. Today's show brought to you by Pressbox's Glenn Clark Radio, which is the definitive place to find the best daily discussion of Baltimore sports. Watch the show every weekday from 10 to noon at youtube.com/PressBoxOnline or facebook.com/PressBoxSports, or listen at PressBoxOnline.com/radio with podcasts available on iTunes, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcasts. You have no excuse to not tune in to GCR. It is freaking everywhere, and you never know who might pop up on GCR. This week, the guys caught up with Baltimore native and ESPN superstar Dominic Foxworth, former Ravens receiver Qadry Ismail, Notre Dame safety and Annapolis native DJ Brown, and the great Kenny Mayne. Find those interviews and more in the Glenn Clark Radio Week in Review feature at PressBoxOnline.com. We do our weekly picks for PressBox on Glenn Clark Radio and PressBox. There's 7 of us, and we pick 3 college games. We pick 6 NFL games, and the loser of the picks has to dress up as Dennis Rodman in the wedding dress. They have to do the worm. They have to eat a burger made of worms, and they have to let somebody do the Rikishi stink face to them. Do you know what the Rikishi stink face is?
I do not, but that's a lot to take in at one time.
So Rikishi was he is a Samoan former professional wrestler. His sons are the twins, the Usos. They are the tag team champions in WWE right now. Well, when Rikishi was in WWE, he's a larger man, and he would wear this thing that almost he wore like a Speedo, right? And with like flares that came down it, like little tassels or whatever. Yeah. And when he had you down and out, he'd prop you up in the corner, run at you full speed, and jump and spin at the same time, and throw his butt right in your face, and then and then rub his butt on your face. That's the stink face.
Wow.
So the loser of the pick'ems has to eat a burger made of worms, dress as the worm, Dennis Rodman in the wedding dress, do the worm, and then they have to get stink faced by Rikishi. I don't know what that has to do with the worm at all, but
burger made of worms, like an actual burger made of worms.
Yes.
You better hope you don't lose, man.
Well, I was vice worm. I was in second to last place for a good bit of the season.
Okay.
Andrew Stecca has been in last place all year, and he's the one who lost last year. He had get his back waxed.
I remember that
on the show.
Yeah. Bad luck for Stecca.
So he makes some terrible picks, like some picks that don't matter. Although he took the Jets to cover against the Bills last week, and not only did they cover, they won.
They did.
He was the only one. He was a lone wolf on that, and he took the Packers. I can't remember who he took something ridiculous that shouldn't have won, and it did as a lone wolf also. But yeah, so he's currently in last place. I was vice worm, second to last place, and then I had like a 5-4 week, and then I went 6-3 the following week with the lone wolf on Green Bay covering against the Bills, and I won that. And then I went 4-3 this past week with 2 pushes to win the week again, and now I'm a game out of first place.
But burger made of worms.
A burger made of worms.
That's terrifying to me.
I'm so glad I've made a run, because now I think I'm 10 games. I think I'm like 9 or 10 games clear of Andrew at this point.
Who are you getting stink faced by? Is it?
I think it's the winner. I think the winner.
It's the winner.
Stink faces you. I don't want to do that to the poor guy. I want to win because it's.
I'm really glad I'm not in this.
It's a small pot. You know what I mean? I want to win, but I don't want to put my butt in the man's face. But look, I was 5 games ahead of him, but I was in second to last place. Now Kyle Ottenheimer is in second to last place, just 3 games up. I am in second place, a game back, tied with Ken Zales, a game back of Glenn Clark.
Okay.
So this is a big week. This is a big week in picks. But yeah, that was all because I just did the Glenn Clark Radio read.
Wild.
Wild stuff.
Wild.
So anyway, it is now time for the Bet Around. Not a lot of baseball bets to make right now. You can do your World Series futures bets. The Bet Around is brought to you by online sports betting, which will be starting in Maryland in the next few weeks. And guys, remember, PressBox is your source for not only the Bet Around, but the best offers and sign-up incentives. Starting now, you can get $300 in pre-registration credits plus other incentives by going to PressBoxOnline.com/offers. So just go to PressBoxOnline.com/offers now, register, and get your $300 in pre-registration bonus credits. That's PressBoxOnline.com/offers. So, Zach, let's go with the playoff teams.
Okay.
Of all the playoff teams last year, and it's the Astros, Yankees, Blue Jays, Mariners, and Rays.
Okay.
And that's only 5. And what was the other team?
You're missing the Guardians, I believe?
And the Guardians. That's right. They won the division. Duh. So those are your 6 teams in the American League. National League, you had the Braves, the Mets, the Cardinals, the Dodgers, the Phillies, and the Padres. Of those 12 teams, which team do you think is the most likely to win the World Series next year.
Oh, give me the Astros.
Give you the Astros.
All day.
All right. Well, the Astros have the second best odds to win the World Series next year at plus 600. Can you care to guess the number one team?
Probably the Yankees.
No. Yankees are third best at plus 850.
Okay.
It is the Dodgers.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
At plus 550 to win the World Series next year. Now, for me, I don't know, man. You look at the St. Louis Cardinals, and they're probably going to add some pitching this offseason.
Sure, they could get a lot better.
They may be a player for Wilson Contreras because Yadier Molina has retired. They're plus 2,000.
Yeah.
Put a $100 bet down, or $10 bet, win $200. $100 bet, win $2,000 on the St. Louis Cardinals. So, which of these odds do you like the best? You have the Cardinals you have the Rays at plus 2,500 to win the world, because you're gonna pick a team, and I'm gonna pick a team for our listeners if they so choose to go place a bet on to win the World Series next year. Okay. So of those teams, and it doesn't even have to be those teams. It can be any team in baseball that you want to pick. If you're picking the Astros, but think about this: the Astros, they have the second best odds, so you can make the second least amount of money. So a team that maybe has decent odds, but probably isn't favored to win the World Series. So you want to pick a team that's competitive, that has a chance to get there, like the Phillies this year would have been an awesome bet to make, or the Guardians because they have the youngest roster and their pitching is really good and they're only going to get better.
Yeah.
Or the Orioles maybe have an outside shot at it.
You know, I really like the Mariners, and I did this year. I thought they would make a pretty deep run, and they're a team that it's probably going to add. You're going to get guys that are only going to improve, like Julio Rodriguez is only going to improve. Hopefully they can add to the pitching and make the starting pitch even better. They could be a really dangerous team next year. I think the Mariners win 95 games at least next year, go on a long run. They could win the World Series very easily. Very easily.
All right, so Zach is going to take the Mariners. He's telling you to go place a futures bet on the Seattle Mariners to win the World Series next year. That is plus 2,000 odds, just like the St. Louis Cardinals.
Okay.
Now, look, it's an Orioles show, so I want to sit here and say, take the Orioles. The Orioles are plus 4,000 to win the World Series. And if you look at it, they're going to have Grayson Rodriguez. They're probably going to add a free agent pitcher or two. They're probably going to add a free agent bat. Then you also have the first full season of Gunnar Henderson, who's already, I mean, you saw what he did from 2021 to 2022 in the minor leagues. And I get it that it's the minors.
Yeah.
He was the best minor league player in baseball.
Yeah.
You saw what he did, and now he's going to be able to do that from one year to the next at the major league level.
In a full season, too.
You got a full season of Adley Rutschman, and you have Jordan Westbrook, who's going to be coming up. The Orioles are probably going to add some players to try and get a little bit better.
Yeah.
The bullpen they might add to. It's not a bad bet at plus 4,000. It's not likely. I still think they're a couple years away from being legitimate World Series contenders. But then I look at a team like the San Francisco Giants.
Yeah, they could easily do it.
They are rumored to be willing to spend a ton of money. They haven't just been linked to Aaron Judge. They've been linked to any of the 4 or 5 big shortstop names. They've got the starting pitching in their rotation. They may bring Rodon back at a longer, more lucrative deal.
Yeah.
They have the money to spend, and they've been outspoken about being willing to spend that money.
Sure.
Right now, you can get the San Francisco Giants at plus 4,000 to win the World Series. I'd say take that.
That seems like a pretty good bet.
I'd say... So that's what we're saying here. On the bat around, Zach is saying take the Seattle Mariners at plus 2,000 to win the World Series in 2023. I'm saying take the San Francisco Giants, who were just a year removed from a 107-win season, at plus 4,000 to win the 2023 World Series, because I think they're going to be major players in free agency, and the pitching's already there. It's going to be a big offseason for the Giants in particular. I think that's not a safe bet. None of these bets are safe, but I think it's a good bet to throw some money down at plus 4,000. All right, very good, very good. Today's show brought to you by the all-new Ginsu Kamado Grill. The Ginsu Kamado Grill is the perfect ceramic tailgate or home grill to sear, grill, bake, and smoke all kinds of food. Zach tried to do it with some salmon on his own and really failed, so he could have really used a Ginsu Kamado Grill. Get the details and reserve your stay at ginsugrills.com and use the code TAILGATE to get $100 off your order. Man, we are just giving away money here at PressBox.
Yeah.
We're giving away money. Why are you guys not taking us up on these offers. Look, come get a sample of the cooking for the Ginsu Kamado Grill before every Ravens home game this season at the Game Day Firehouse, located at the Firefighters Union Hall just west of the stadium at 1202 Ridgely Street. You can stop by, try some food, and enter to win a Ginsu Kamado ceramic grill and $500 worth of grilling meats. I wonder if salmon is included in the $500 worth of grilling meats.
Should be.
It should be. Have you tried salmon since? Have you tried?
No.
Just some ham and cheese Hot Pockets?
No, not that either. I haven't made salmon again, but it's going to be a little while. It's going to be a little while. It was PTSD. It was bad. It didn't taste all that bad, but like I told you, like a good quarter of it was raw because it just wasn't cooking through right. I don't know.
You got to get the Ginsu Kamado.
I was going to say I blame it on the stove of my apartment complex. It just wasn't good enough, so I blame it on that.
I blame it on you for not knowing how to cook salmon.
That's also very probable.
So you know how to do your own laundry at least.
Oh, well, come on.
Come
on.
It's all right, man. Like I said, you look like a tennis player. So
come on.
Maybe your parents have been doing your laundry.
I look like a tennis player. I've heard that before from you. From you and you only.
Yeah, from me. You look like a tennis player.
All right.
All right. So, Orioles banter. Off-season begins. Damn. It's already 10 to 12. I thought we were getting out of here at like 12:05 today. Yeah, good luck, Paul. All right, Orioles banter. The offseason begins, and Rich Dubroff made a really an important comment there, and he's absolutely right. And I say this a lot. Now, it's not to pat myself on the back, but it's because I agree with Rich. Mm-hmm. You never know what you're going to get with prospects. He said it, and I typed it so I wouldn't forget it. You never know what you're going to get with prospects.
Yeah.
So the Orioles, they have this infield roster crunch. There's a bunch of shortstops on the market. The Orioles have a plethora of outfielders. Mm-hmm. There's a couple big name outfielders, none bigger than Aaron Judge, but then there's also Brandon Nimmo. Yeah. I do think the Orioles are going to trade some outfielders for pitching with potentially the Marlins. Mm-hmm. I don't think you don't sign players because you have prospects that are waiting. Like, I wouldn't say don't sign Trey Turner because you have Gunnar Henderson and Jackson Holiday. Like, if you can get Trey Turner, go get Trey Turner.
Right.
But Trey Turner can also play all over the field.
Right.
He can play anywhere. So with that in mind, do you think that the Orioles have the same mindset? Do you think that the Orioles are approaching free agency the same way, that if they can get a really good player, that they're going to try and get him?
Of course. I mean, I think they're going to sign who they believe to be the middle of the order bat. If we're looking at just on the hitting side of things at the moment, I don't think they're going to sign a guy based on the fact that he plays a certain position. I think they're going to sign a guy based on the fact that he can be a middle of the order bat. Mm-hmm. That he can bat third or fourth in this lineup and provide a spark nightly, and a guy that makes a big difference. I mean, you saw Rock Kubatko. He just wrote about it yesterday that they left the GM meetings and he said their first priority is still adding a middle of the order bat, a starting pitcher, and hopefully some backup catcher help. That's their priority, and I don't really think position matters that much because guys are versatile these days, too. And the Orioles have added, certainly throughout the farm system and at the Major League roster, a plethora of versatile guys. You look at Ramon Arias. He's very versatile. Gunnar Henderson can play 3 different positions in the infield and maybe first base, too. You look at Jorge Mateo the same way. If you sign a guy like Trey Turner, there's a number of places that he could play because of the versatility the Orioles already have. Mm-hmm. A guy like Colton Cowser can play all 3 outfield positions. Jordan Westberg can play all 3 infield positions besides first base.
And some outfield.
You have guys who can move around, and I think that's what they need, and that's why they've been, really breeding these guys to be able to play all these different positions because it's that important when you're signing free agents. Maybe outside of a guy like Jose Abreu, who probably is limited to first base and DH. That's where he's going to be. Mm-hmm. But you look at the other guys, the shortstops, and man, they're athletic. The shortstop is arguably the most athletic player in the field. They can play anywhere.
Well, and so it makes, and that's why I'm not sold that the Orioles aren't going to be players for some of these big name guys, simply because who else are they going to sign? If they're if their top priority, and Rock has said it a number of times, and we've said it on the show, that their top priority needs to be a middle of the order bat, first and foremost, because that's where they faltered this past year, was the offense. The pitching was 2 runs better than it was the year before. Yeah. Where they faltered was with the offense. They need a legitimate middle of the order bat.
Yeah.
Who are they going to sign if not these top guys? And look, the legitimate free agents on the market that can hit, I'm going to read them off to you because they got qualifying offers, right? Aaron Judge, Trey Turner, Xander Bogaerts, Dansby Swanson, Carlos Correa didn't because he opted out. Yeah. Brandon Nimmo, Wilson Contreras, Anthony Rizzo, Jock Peterson. Those are the main offensive bats that are on the market. There's not a bad name amongst all of them. Look, you're not going to sign Anthony Rizzo because you don't. He's a left-handed bat, but you don't really need him.
No.
Right?
I don't see Rizzo as a possibility.
And Rizzo is still too good of a first baseman to move to a full-time DH role.
Yeah.
And Ryan Mountcastle has become too good of a first baseman, and he's too young to move into a full-time DH role. You don't need to do that. You're cutting off your nose to spite your face. Rizzo's not a thing. Wilson Contreras, you have Adley Rutschman, and you're not bringing Wilson Contreras into platoon with Adley Rutschman.
No.
He's not a thing. Jock Peterson's probably accepting that qualifying offer because nobody else is going to give him $20 million a year.
Yeah, I think we need to have a conversation about Jock Peterson because there are a lot of people who really like Jock Peterson, want Jock Peterson. Jock Peterson is basically Rougned Odor plus.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, that's what he is.
He hit 279 last year. His on base percentage was like 360, 23 home runs. They said if he played in Camden Yards, if he played for the Orioles, he would have had 20. He would have had 6 more home runs last year. That's the best year he's ever had. His weighted runs created weighted runs created plus was 116.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at every other year, it's not the same.
No, he hit 249 or less every other season in his career. He in 2021 had a 90. I think he had a 96 weighted runs created, and in 2020 it was 83.
Yeah,
you could look. People are saying, "Oh, this guy had an 856 OPS or whatever the hell it was."
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What did he do the year before? Because you look at the inverse of that. You look at what Jesus Aguilar this year was god-awful. But in 2021, he had a 111 weighted runs created. Right. And he had 23 homers and drove in 99. So
I'm not signing Jock Peterson based on one good year. I'm just not. And, if you look at
neither is Mike Elias.
Right, I agree with that. And if you look at the numbers from the years he hit 36 home runs in 2019 and 25 home runs in 2018, the on-base percentage is still relatively low. The highest he got was 339.
Didn't he hit 36 home runs and only drive in like 57?
He 74 in that 36 home run year.
There was somebody that I saw that is a free agent that hit like 30-some-odd home runs one year, but only drove in like 57 runs.
That could certainly be possible.
It was something ridiculous. But Jock Peterson isn't the guy because pitchers know that they can get him out.
Yeah.
A guy that you need for this lineup because you already have those guys in your lineup, right? Pitchers know they can get out Ryan Mountcastle. They know they can get out Anthony Santander.
Yeah.
And they don't have to throw him strikes in big situations to get them out. We saw it time and time again with Santander and Mountcastle and then Austin Hayes.
Yeah.
Austin Hayes, I don't know that he's going to be here, but I don't know that that's a guy. Like, you already have a number of guys in your lineup that are Jock Peterson-esque players.
Right.
You have Gunnar Henderson and Adley Rutschman in your lineup to take the best at bats.
Yeah,
they take the best at bats, and then Taron Vavra, but doesn't have the hitter profile that those guys do. You need that legitimate bat. That legitimate bat is not Jock Peterson.
No, I don't think it is either. And I mean, maybe Rougned Odor is a bad comparison. He's a lot better of a player
a lot better than
at this point.
Odor.
But if you look at the numbers from Rougned Odor when he was good in 2015, 2017, those years, they're
very comparable.
Pretty similar. And maybe now it's not a good comparison, but you understand my point here that the on-base percentage
he could be headed in that direction.
He could be headed in that direction, number one, but also the on-base percentage is low. The strikeouts are high. The swing and miss is high. It's a guy that he doesn't really diversify the Orioles enough for me. I think they need a guy who frankly gets on base a lot more than Jock Peterson does, and I'm not sure he's the right fit.
Look, if the Orioles signed a legitimate middle-of-the-order bat and Jock Peterson, okay, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that I wouldn't want Jock Peterson under the right situation, but he can't be the guy that you sign.
Well, I agree with that. One thing I will say, and this is going to be, I think, relative to Jock Peterson and Joey Gallo, because the shift is being banned in this coming year, and that's going to help out left-handed hitters. And Joey Gallo and Jock Peterson, I think, are two guys who have really struggled because of the shift in a lot of scenarios.
But they also strike out a ton. Those two are guys that I could see really benefiting and becoming better players because of the shift being banned. But I don't think that, again, should be a reason for the Orioles to go out and say, these guys are the right fit. I certainly don't think Joey Gallo is the right fit. I could stomach Jock Peterson. I couldn't stomach Joey Gallo. The only two times that Joey Gallo has crossed my mind this offseason is the 2 times that he's been mentioned to me, and that was by you and by Ryan Blake. Joey,
Okay.
I have zero interest.
Yeah,
I have
I'm not a
negative
fan.
interest.
I'm not a fan.
I would pay the Orioles not to sign
Wow. Okay.
Joey Gallo.
Yeah, no, I certainly don't disagree with you. I think, again,
But-
he fits that mold of high strikeout.
And he's not even listed as a top 50 free agent.
No, he's not. And he's fallen off. I mean, he hasn't been what he was, 4 years ago in Texas. He had 1 or 2 good years that were home run heavy. But there's a lot of shortcomings that come with a guy like that.
Right. And so when I look at the legitimate middle of the order bats that they can add, it's Aaron Judge, it's Trey Turner, it's Xander Bogaerts, it's Dansby Swanson, it's Carlos Correa, it's Josh Bell, it's Jose Abreu, it's JD Martinez. You have to imagine they're going to sign one of those guys.
Yeah.
It'll probably be JD Martinez.
I was going to say, I really feel he's the right fit. Him and Jose Abreu,
they're the 2 best fits.
Yeah.
And they're guys that you don't need to lock up to a long-term deal. They're not going to block anybody. They're not going to stop any of these young prospects who might be on the way but not quite ready yet, like a Kobe Mayo, right? They're not going to block him. So for me, it's you're probably not getting the Aaron Judge Waters. No, and as much as I would love him in the middle of this order, if it's the amount of money and the amount of years they're saying he's going to get, he's not going to be healthy for the duration of that contract. And Trey Turner is the one guy who I see no flaws in his game. And so I would love to have him. Carlos Correa is a guy often injured, but when he's on the field, he's a difference maker, and he legitimizes your ball club. But Dansby Swanson isn't going to be a Baltimore Oriole. He's probably still going to be a Brave. Likelihood is Trey Turner and Aaron Judge aren't going to be Baltimore Orioles. But somebody's got to be. Right. Somebody's going to be signed, and it's probably going to be not Aaron Judge, Jose Abreu or JD Martinez. I don't. I think Justin Turner is on the wrong side of his career at this point.
I respect Stan's opinion there completely. I do not agree with him personally.
Right.
Justin Turner, the power number dropped off by 14 home runs this year. Number one, the on base percentage was still .350. That's really good.
He had a good year, and he drove in over 80. He had 35 plus doubles.
But on November 23rd, he turns 38 years old, and when you look at guys who get at that age, you start to see a massive drop-off. And it could come sharply. You could see him have a 310 on-base percentage this year, where the numbers are significantly worse. I would, frankly, kind of expect that because, again, he's 38 years old. And then, again, Justin Turner I don't really feel that's a middle-of-the-order bat to me. I think he's maybe like a 7-hitter on a lot of teams.
And he's not an everyday player.
No, I wouldn't say that either. I do think, as far as JD Martinez goes, the numbers are somewhat similar, but I believe JD's younger, number one, and I think JD has a higher ceiling left at his career at this point. I think there's room for growth with him where there isn't really with Justin Turner.
Yeah, exactly. And Justin Turner, he's not going to suddenly get better, especially with that big wall in left field. And if you're going to bring in a guy who's probably going to be a DH for you, why would it be Justin Turner?
Yeah, I just don't see that. Unless you want to bat him 7th or 8th, then maybe I could stomach that. But again, I don't.
He can play some third base and first base for you.
He can. JD Martinez just makes so much sense, and you get gut feelings. I don't know if you do, but I get gut feelings about who's going to be an Oriole, and you can kind of feel it. I felt it with Alex Cobb a few years ago, in I believe it was 2017, somewhere around there, when he was signed, and you can just. You kind of start to feel who the real right fit is, and JD Martinez is really feeling like the right fit for me.
He feels like the right fit to me too, and ever since you mentioned him about a month and a half ago, he's felt like the right fit for me. And so then that's why I also think that the Orioles, I said it to Ryan on Give That Fan a Podcast, shameless plug alert, the other day, and I said, I firmly believe that the Orioles are going to make a trade for pitching with the Miami Marlins.
They certainly could. And again, there was another account this week. I don't know if it was one of the real reliable accounts out there on Twitter, but they said that Miami's looking for a center fielder.
Yeah, and the Orioles have a couple of those. And I also saw something, and I don't know how reliable that source is, but the Braves are shopping Ronald Acuna Jr. and that the Orioles are one of the teams.
I saw that too.
Now, Mike Elias could have been like, "Hey, heard you're shopping Acuna. What do you want from him?" Yeah, no thanks, we're out.
Yeah,
but that's considered to be one of the teams that talked to the Braves about it. Now, if the Orioles traded for Ronald Acuna, I would have to see what they have to give up. But he's a difference maker. There wouldn't be much that you could tell me that the Orioles were giving up where I wouldn't be like, do it.
So someone said, would you trade Jackson Holliday for Ronald Acuna? I'm not thinking twice about that. Yes, absolutely. I'm trading Jackson Holliday.
18-year-old is probably 3 years away from the major leagues for Ronald Acuna.
Ronald Acuna is a generational player, and certainly Jackson Holliday could be too, but I'm taking my chances there. I'm getting Ronald Acuna.
Yeah.
Ronald Acuna is a 5-tool star.
If you can trade a prospect for a player like Ronald Acuna, and look, it's depending on the prospect. I
was going to say, it's not going to be just Jackson Holliday. It'll be more guys than that.
But I don't want to trade Gunnar Henderson and Grayson Rodriguez for Ronald Acuna. But Jackson Holliday, who hasn't even started his first full pro season yet, he's 18 years old. It's probably 2 to 3 years at a minimum from the majors. I could get on board with that, especially when you think that you probably already have your shortstop of the future in Gunnar Henderson.
Yeah. By the way, I'm starting to get another gut feeling, and this has happened. I've been thinking this about really the last week, that I really feel Cedric Mullins is going to be moved.
You think so?
I'm really confident in that.
I could see it. But we've been talking about this for 2 years now.
We have.
We thought he might get traded last offseason because his value was never going to be higher. But I also wouldn't be surprised to see him. A lot of people I respect really seem to think that he's going to stay. That he's going to stay and be a part of this team moving forward. I do want to talk a little bit about them. Somebody asked me if we could tune into the MASN All Access free agent bracket and talk about the guys that they talk about on the show. And I said I would do that. So, but I'm not going to go over all 32 players that they had in their bracket. We're going to do the final 4. And in their final 4, they had it Paul Moncano, and I can't remember the name of his co-host.
Mortensen, right? Isn't it Brendan Mortensen?
Yes, Brendan Mortensen. That's what it is. Thank you. It was slipping my mind. They had it in the 4 brackets were the 4 columns were backup catcher, starting pitcher, position player, and power bat.
Yeah.
And their final 4 came down to Kirk Casale, Jock Peterson, Jameson Taillon, and Joey Wendell.
Yeah.
I have zero interest in Joey Wendell.
Same here. I do not.
I have zero interest in Jock Peterson if he's the only guy.
I wouldn't say I have zero interest in him. He's just not at the top of my list.
Yeah, I don't have interest in him if he's the only one.
Yeah.
If he's an add-on, if he's somebody else that you sign in addition to, then yes. Kirk Casale, they could do far worse as a backup catcher. I'm still in on Tucker Barnhart, but I think he still views himself as an everyday, as a starting caliber catcher. And then Jameson Taillon, I think that the Orioles could do so much worse than Jameson Taillon.
Yeah.
And if it's going to cost you $18 million a year, that's a guy who I would love to. He's never been bad at the big league level.
So here's my point about Lyles, though. If you look at Lyles' numbers, they're barely any different than Jameson Taillon's this year. So am I paying him $7 million more per year to be a little better than Jordan Lyles?
Yeah.
Are you?
I think he's more than a little better.
I mean, Lyles had a 4.42 ERA and Taillon had a 4.94. So he had
Taillon had his ERA was like 3.89.
I could be wrong. Okay,
he has never his ERA. I think the highest ERA he's ever posted was like 4.2 something.
Oh yeah, you're correct. It was 3.91. You're right. Okay,
yeah.
So that is a significant. He's
a half run better.
Is that $7 million better
for a half run ERA?
I guess so.
Yeah, I mean, you add that up over the course of a season, and if you look at his stats, he's never been bad.
By the way,
his worst season was like a 4.5 ERA.
I'm missing him with I'm replacing him with Sean Manaea. Manaea had the 4.94 ERA.
Manaea was really good up through the first half last year, and then he just fell apart.
And he was rumored to get the same really type of contract that Jameson Taillon could.
4 years, 52 by MLB trade rumors, and Taillon 4 years, 56.
I'm not paying Sean Manaea that much money.
Well, the final 2 were Jock Peterson and Jameson Taillon.
Okay.
Winner was Jameson Taillon, and that was just a practice by them.
Yeah.
To pick the one guy they were for sure was going to get signed by the Orioles, and it was Taillon. But I agree with them. They said that they think they're going to add more than just that.
Yeah.
I don't know how many they're going to add. If they get one legitimate starting pitcher and one legitimate bat, I'm good.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to add more than that because Eli said they're going to be active early and often. Is paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said. Now, before we catch our final break, those guys were also – they both, for some reason, love the idea of Carlos Santana.
I do not.
Carlos Santana, I think, is the guy who I saw had like a 30-homer season with only 57 RBIs. There is not one part of me that wants Carlos Santana in an Orioles uniform. I just think that the bat doesn't play anymore. Yeah, he has a ton of power, but doesn't hit for good average.
He hit 19 home runs this year. His on-base percentage was .316. OPS of .692. That's not something I think is a middle of the order bat at all. That's far from it, frankly.
Yeah,
I don't think that's the right fit at all.
His last 3 seasons, he's hit 199, 214, 202. He hasn't been a 30-homer player in what's going to be 4 years now. He's never driven in 100. He walks a ton. He's a big on-base guy, but he's also he doesn't strike out as much as I thought he did. But that's not a bat that I want in the lineup. That's not a bat that makes your team better.
No.
That you can find a DH for the same money that you're going to for probably less money in your organization that's going to put up better numbers than that. I don't understand the whole Carlos Santana thing, but
I don't either.
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Neither would, and they also tweeted out the Mass and All Access said, would anybody have interest in Gene Segura or Joey Wendell? And I said no.
Segura maybe, Wendell no way.
Well, but you have those players on your team already. Why would you get rid of Mateo or Arias and then go sign Segura or Wendell?
Segura's a clutch hitter. He always has come up in big spots.
So is Arias.
That's true. I do really like Segura. I always have. Segura's been a favorite of mine. I talked about it 2 weeks ago, though. He is one of the weirder players in baseball, where the defense is a little shaky in a lot of situations. So
and you're not going to. And the other thing is, Connor Norby, Jordan West are going to get shots this year, more than likely, right, to play second base. One of those two guys is going to play second base a good bit for the Orioles this year. And until they do, why not have Arias play second base? Why go out and why move Arias to a utility role or trade him and then go get Segura? There's not a need for either of those players. There's not a need for a veteran. And I talked about this with Connor Newcomb. I respect Connor Newcomb a great deal, and he's certain that the Orioles are going to sign a free agent infielder, but not like one of the big names, but like a free agent infielder. I don't understand that. I don't see why they would.
Well,
it doesn't make any sense
unless it's your top guys, then it doesn't make a lot of sense.
If it's your top guy, sure, but you already have a guy that's comparable, if not better, than any of those veteran infielders that you would sign on the open market.
I would do a cheap deal for Gene Segura. I really would. But I don't know outside of that if I would go after anybody.
At this point in his career, I don't know that he's much better than Arias.
Okay, that's fair.
And I think Arias is a better defender. Arias, he played
I would agree
most
with
of his time at third base. He didn't make a single error at second base in 30 games, though.
Yeah. No.
So it's none of those. A veteran infielder doesn't make any sense to me because you already got a lot in on your team as it is. All right, we got to catch our final break. When we come back in, I've got a trivia question for. I almost called you Alex. I've got a trivia question for Zach. Then we've got some final thoughts. That and more as we wrap things up here on the Bet Around.
The Baltimore County Police Department is hiring. Entry-level officers start at close to $59,000 a year with a $10,000 bonus. Some restrictions apply. Plus a great retirement plan, medical, dental, and vision insurance, advancement to specialized units, tuition reimbursement, 15 sick days earned per calendar year, and even further incentives for military members and veterans. If you have a passion for service and want a career for life, visit joinbaltimorecountypd.com or call 410-887-5542. You must be a United States citizen, possess a valid driver's license, and have a high school diploma or GED equivalent. The Baltimore County Police Department is an equal opportunity employer.
Come experience Maryland's #1 sportsbook this NFL season at the FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel, the ultimate place for any sports enthusiast. Take advantage of our 24/7 kiosks, massive video screens, and watch all the action from the best seat in the house. With more money paid out than anyone around, make every moment more at the new FanDuel Sportsbook at Live Casino and Hotel in Hanover, Maryland. Please play responsibly. Gambling problem? Please call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit mdgamblinghelp.org.
Receive a free Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich offer card as a thank you when you donate to Toys for Tots on Saturday, November 12th at any of the 13 Baltimore area Chick-fil-A Stuff the Truck event sites. Be one of the first 50 people to donate, and you will also get a free t-shirt. For a location list and more information, visit PressBoxOnline.com/toy drive.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
Glory Days Grill's Oktoberfest menu is now running. It's one of their most popular seasonal menus all year. It features the chicken schnitzel, the Oktoberfest brewer's platter, the brewer's sausage sandwich, the Bavarian burger with a pretzel bun, the cheddar ale soup, the slam dunk pretzels, and the apple cobbler. All of these meals pair well with Oktoberfest beers and Angry Orchard on draft. Dine in or order online at glorydaysgrill.com and pick up your favorites to take home. Glory Days Grill, great food, good sports.
That first sip. That first bite. Start your day off right with a delicious breakfast at Royal Farms. Choose from a fantastic selection of fresh Royal Farms breakfast sandwiches and top it off with a rich hot cup of the freshest coffee in the world. At Royal Farms, breakfast is available day and night. It's the freshest breakfast in the world. Real fresh, real fast. Royal Farms.
Have you been to Guilford Hall Brewery? Located in Baltimore's Station North neighborhood, Guilford Hall Brewery breaks the craft brew mold with their great handcrafted microbrews and amazing Bavarian-style food selections. Join Guilford Hall 7 days a week for Orioles, Ravens, and all of your favorite college games. Make plans now to watch the big games, play trivia, or bring your dog for Yappy Hour. They even have free valet service on Friday and Saturday nights. Go to guilfordhall.com for a complete schedule of events, beer listings, and food and drink specials. We'll see you at Guilford Hall Brewery.
The latest edition of Press Box is available now. On the cover, New Maryland basketball coach Kevin Willard sits down with Stan Charles and Glenn Clark to discuss the situation he inherited in College Park and how he plans to get the program turned around. Also, inside, we introduce you to men's and women's college basketball players from all of the teams in the area. And Bo Smoka profiles Ravens receiver Devin Duvernay. Press Box is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
Back in here on the Bat Around. Today's show brought to you by the latest edition of Press Box, which is available now. On the cover, New Maryland basketball coach Kevin Willard, who has those guys playing pretty well right now, sits down with Stan Charles and Glenn Clark to discuss the situation he inherited in College Park and how he plans to get the program turned around. Also inside, we introduce you to men's and women's college basketball players from all of the teams in the area, and Bo Smoka profiles Ravens receiver Devin Duvernay. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores, and you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the Orioles, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com. All right, time for trivia. Trivia is a segment that we introduced last year during the offseason, and we're into the offseason.
I'm a little nervous.
And it is back now. I think Zach forgot about it till he saw the trivia
I very much did.
blurb. What are the 5 richest contracts given out to free agents in Orioles history based on average annual value? One caveat here, not to their own free agents. So even though Trumbo got 3 years, $37.5 million, and Davis got 7 years, $161 million, and they were free agents, they were the Orioles' own free agents.
Okay, so no re-signs.
No re-signs.
Got it. This is hard. This is something, it's going to go back a little bit, I think. Mark Trumbo the first time wasn't one of them, correct? I doubt that.
No, they traded for him.
Oh, they did trade for him. That's correct. Alex Cobb would be my first guess.
Alex Cobb, number 2, 4 years, $57 million.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot of money for them in that regime. I can't. This
you don't
is
have
tough.
to know the numbers. Just guess the player.
Okay. Tejada.
Miguel Tejada, number 1, 6 years,
Okay.
$72 million.
So I'm assuming all these are multi-year deals, right? Like it's not going to be.
There's one 1-year deal and there's one 2-year deal.
Jimmy Key?
No.
Okay. Sammy Sosa, I'm assuming in 2005.
He was traded for. They traded.
Ah,
They traded Jerry
interesting.
Hairston and somebody else for,
I didn't know
for
that.
Sammy Sosa.
learn something new every day.
And back when Jimmy Key signed with the Orioles in '97,
they weren't giving out contracts like that. I guess.
Like Palmeiro, I thought would be on here when he signed in the '93-'94 offseason, and his contract was like 5 years, $27.5 million.
Palmeiro's my next guest, so I'm glad you.
He's not on the list.
I doubt Andrew Cashner's one of them, but you never know because they haven't given out a lot of big contracts.
Andrew Cashner would be number 6.
Number 6. Okay.
He would have been 2 years, $16 million.
Okay.
So
okay.
I'll give you the numbers here.
Oh, 2 years, $16 million. Okay.
And that would have been number
6. So Jordan Lyles wouldn't be that far off.
Yeah, but he had 2 years, $16 million is $8 million a year.
Right.
Jordan
Lyles,
and Lyles was $7 million.
Right. Well, I guess if they picked up the option, he would have been over. He probably would have been number 5.
But they didn't.
Right. I know.
If they signed Aaron Judge, they'd be
of course.
Do you want me to give you the numbers of the contract?
Sure, yeah,
All
that
right.
would help maybe.
Number 3 is 4 years, $48 million. Number 4 is 2 years, $22 million, and number 5 is 1 year, $8.05 million.
Wow, this is.
You're never gonna get number 5.
I doubt it. I really doubt it.
There's no way. He's never even played for the team. He got hurt.
Can you give me like years? That might help a little bit.
I did. 4 years.
No.
No. I'm not giving you the numbers. That's going to give it away.
I don't know if I'm going to get this. Was Luke Scott one of them?
No.
Okay.
Luke Scott wasn't that
random
guy.
Random guess.
I think he came over.
I love Luke. Okay.
He was a good player, but when the Orioles got him here, he wasn't that guy.
Okay.
I think he came over in the same trade where they got.
J.J. Hardy.
No.
Oh, he was a re-sign.
He was a trade and then a re-sign.
Ah, that's right. That was a re-sign. Trade from the Brewers, right? This is so much harder than it should be. Wow. This is really tough. I feel like I should be getting this, right? Like I should be.
You're familiar with all 3 of these guys.
Oh, I know I am.
But the third guy, you're never gonna get him.
I really doubt it.
He never played for the Orioles. He got signed, and it wasn't too recent, but he got signed and never played for him.
Like Dexter Fowler.
That doesn't.
But not Dexter Fowler.
That would have been 3 years, $33 million, and that would have been
on there.
But he backed out.
Can you give me positions?
No.
All right, I might not get this then. I don't remember who was signed and who was traded for. I think that's the biggest problem.
They're all pitchers.
They're all pitchers.
But that's and if I told you that, and if I told you that's both dead giveaways.
Yeah. Okay. Miguel Gonzalez.
No, he was a claim from the Mexican League.
See, I don't remember that stuff. I believe Chen was drafted, but I don't remember exactly.
Well, he was a free agent, but he was signed out of Korea.
It's been so many years. Chris Tillman, I know. I believe
he came over in the Adam Jones trade.
Adam Jones trade, yeah. I was gonna say I believe he was traded for. Man, it has to be early 2010s, late 2000s is my guess. That's probably what it was. It wasn't Jim Johnson, was it? No. Okay. I guess I give up then. I don't know.
You're just gonna give up?
I mean, how long are we gonna sit here and have me run through names? Man, this is very. When you're put on the spot like this, it's tougher than you think.
So Chen, was here with the Orioles on a 4-year deal, and his average annual contract was between $3 and $4 million.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Average annual.
That's pretty
low. He never pitched here, and he signed in 2012. So. All right, you're gonna give up?
Give me one more minute. We'll run through some more names.
You're the one who wants to be out of here in 3 minutes.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Man,
I wanted to be too. I can't believe we stayed here this long.
All right, yeah, I don't know. I really don't know.
Number 3, Ubaldo Jimenez. 4 years, $48 million.
Come on.
I knew you'd kick yourself.
I knew that.
Number 4, Yovani Gallardo. 2 years, $22 million.
I thought he was traded for. Okay.
And remember, he had signed the contract, and then something came up in his physical, and the Orioles backed out and then redid the contract.
Give me like Sidney Ponson or something for number 5. I don't know.
He was drafted by the Orioles.
Was he? Yeah, who knows? Been a while.
Number 5. Threw a no-hitter with the Mets.
A lot of guys threw no-hitters for the Mets.
A Rule, not as many as you think. It was a Rule 5 pick.
Rule 5
by the Minnesota Twins.
Wow.
Never pitched for the Orioles because he got hurt in spring training.
Oh, was it Johan Santana?
Johan Santana.
Oh, okay.
1
All
year,
right.
$8.05
All right.
million. I was shocked to see that. I didn't realize that they gave him that much
I
money.
totally forgot about
1
that.
year,
Yeah.
But it just goes to show you that
they haven't spent a lot of money.
They haven't spent, like Chris Davis at 7 years, $161 million is the most lucrative contract ever given to any player, let alone a free agent. And he was already a member of their team, and they were re-signing him. I mean, he was a member of the team, but he had already been here. They might blow some of this stuff out of the water. They may blow a few of these contracts out of the water this offseason. That remains to be seen.
Can't believe I didn't get Ubaldo. That should have been a gimme.
I knew you were going to be kicking yourself into that.
I think I tried to block his Orioles career out of my memory after
he had some moments.
2014 wasn't too bad, I guess, but
2016, his final moment, that sucked.
Yeah.
All right.
Sure did.
Final thoughts, real quick. The Orioles are going to sign a big name bat. They're going to because there's nobody else out there. They're not going to go out and sign somebody that's going to if they and Rock is the guy who's like the most in tune, right? If he is saying that after GM meetings they're still saying their number one priority is a middle of the order bat, they're not going to sign somebody that's not a legitimate middle of the order bat. They're going to sign somebody. Well, I think that the Orioles are going to be the surprise team of the offseason.
Maybe I mischaracterized that. He said that they're getting a starting pitcher, a backup catcher, and the middle of the order bat. They're all the priorities right now. That's all the number one. But if you would have to believe that's probably the number one.
He's written a number of times that the top priority is the middle of the order bat. They can trade for pitching. On the free agent market, I think that the Orioles are going to be one of the surprise teams of the offseason. Everybody's saying they're not going to spend money because they never have before, but it's a different regime. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to be one of the surprise teams this offseason.
All right. Yeah, I wanted to talk about the Astros real quick and James Click. Jim Crane basically came out and said his reasoning for not really wanting to bring, or he didn't come out and say this, but it was reported on by sources that he didn't really like the way that James Click implemented analytics and that he thought the analytical approach wasn't right. But if we're forgetting that's how the Astros won the World Series in 2017. I mean, they went all in on analytics and they changed the culture and they went and they changed baseball, really. I mean, that's what the whole book of Astro Ball is about. If you read that book, it's a great book. I don't know why all of a sudden they're starting to say analytics are not the move for them. That James Click was implementing them too much. If you look at what James Click did, most of the guys that were on that World Series team are Jeff Luhnow guys, Mike Elias guys from the previous regime. James Click really hadn't added a lot of great players to that World Series team, and he'd been there for a little while, so I can see why that would be a concern, and I can see why maybe they moved on from him. But I don't think analytics should be the reason that they ever move on from a GM. I think that's what makes the Astros so great in a lot of ways, is that their analytical pickups and the way they spend money is so efficient and effective. I don't think that's the right rationale for it at all. I mean, maybe you can say he hasn't really gotten great players in his tenure there, but analytics, that's not the reason for me.
Yeah, to me, it just sounds like Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah,
it just sounds like an owner wants to have complete control,
right.
And wants this, that, and the other, and this guy maybe push back on some things, and so all right, well, here's a year at $1 million. Yeah. You're not going to accept it. So I heard it referred to as a firing of sorts.
Right. The deal was offered almost in jest.
Yeah,
in a way, it wasn't really a serious offer.
You want to come back? Okay, you're coming back on my terms. 1 year, $1 million.
Right.
Knew that he wasn't going to take that.
Right.
I don't really have an opinion on the matter. I don't know much about James Click, but I do know that if he was the general manager of the Astros, he's not going to have a hard time finding a job.
No, he won't.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick about the Ravens, they're 6-3. They've won 3 straight. They're rushing for 188 yards per game this year. They have, for the first time in their history, apparently, they've rushed for over 150 yards in 4 straight games, which kind of blew my mind because the 2019 and 2020 teams were so good at running the
rushing
ball.
Teams, yeah.
This team's getting healthier.
Mm-hmm.
Their defense with Roquan Smith is getting nasty. Yeah. Marcus Williams is expected back in December. David Ajabo should be playing in their next game next Sunday.
Yeah.
Bowser made an impact immediately. Patrick Queen's getting better. This team is headed in the right direction at the right time. November, December, this is when the football really starts to matter, and they have the easiest schedule in the NFL left. Brandon Marshall said on a show the other day, and he was sitting right next to Ray Lewis, he said he thinks the Ravens are the best team in football, and it's not even close. Mm-hmm. He said this might be the bbest Ravens team of all time. I don't know about all that.
No,
but if this Ravens team goes 14-3, which they've or 13-4, and they realistically shouldn't lose another game until the final game of the year when they are likely to be resting all their guys.
Yeah.
If they go 13-4 or 14-3 and win a Super Bowl, you can make the argument they're the best Ravens team ever. However, I don't disagree that they're the best team in the NFL right now because they've had a double-digit lead in every single one of their 9 games.
Yeah.
They're a minute and 20 seconds away from being undefeated.
The Eagles are really good.
The Eagles are really good too, but I don't think the Eagles would stand a chance against the Ravens.
Really? Okay.
I don't. I don't think the Eagles would stand a chance against it. You saw how mediocre Josh Allen looked against the Ravens.
Yeah, he
no
certainly...
other team really even when the Dolphins beat them 17-14 or 20-17 or whatever, the Bills put up like 500 yards of total offense.
Yeah.
Right? And then you look at the loss to the Jets. Maybe the Jets had something. I can't remember the yardage that they put up. But the Ravens made the Bills look pedestrian.
Yeah.
And the Ravens should have won. A couple mistakes cost them that game. They should have won that football game. I don't think – maybe it would be close with the Eagles, but I think the Ravens would beat them.
Okay.
And if the Ravens were playing them in Baltimore, it would not a shadow of a doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
Ravens win that game. Needless to say, there's not a game, so there's no predictions here. But I really think that the Ravens are starting to play their best football.
Yep.
When they come back from the bye and they have Gus Edwards back, and then in December they get J.K. Dobbins and Marcus Williams back.
Yeah.
They're the best. They're the best team in the AFC.
I think they're in really good shape, and they're gonna. Roquan Smith adds a whole nother dimension to this defense. He's a big game changer. I'm looking forward to it. I think they're gonna be really good down the stretch.
There's no reason for them not to make the playoffs going away here. That's gonna do it for us on the Bat Around. Thank you to Stan the Fan Charles for his weekly segment. Thank you to Rich Dubroff, great friend of the show, for coming on and being so gracious on a day off to come and talk some Orioles off season. Thanks to all of our listeners for tuning in and all of our sponsors for allowing us to be able to do this show. Guys, it's going to be a busy off season. Hopefully it starts maybe as soon as Tuesday once the qualifying offers are accepted or rejected. But hopefully we have more to talk about as far as Orioles signings and maneuverings next Saturday.